All right, we're gonna have quorum. So we'll start the meeting. Anybody else hear that feedback? It's okay, I think he's listening. Okay, sorry. We do have regrets from Trustee Benjamin. I don't have any other regrets. I it can text it. Okay. No other regrets that as of this moment. So the first thing we're going to do is the acknowledgement of traditional territory.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig and Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
All right. And again, I'd like to remark on the beauty of the land that is outside. And encourage everybody to get out and take their shoes off, take their socks off, to the earth. All right, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. We do have an additional item on our agenda. We do have a delegation. And that's under number 6, delegations, public questions. We have a delegation from Katie Allen, and she will be presenting the agenda item. Our topic is the communication program cancellation. So with that addition, would somebody like to move for approval of the agenda? Thank you. And could you bring your name tag out so that I can see you?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm really sorry, but if everybody could turn their name tag towards me, that would be appreciated. Thank you. All right. So Andrew moves. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Jennifer. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Number 4 is the declaration of conflict of interest. I will scan and see if anybody raises their hand, and nobody's raised their hand. Wonderful. Okay, number 5 is the approval of the minutes from the SEAC meeting of April 18th, 2024. And does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns with regards to these minutes? Trustee Allen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just sorry, as it relates to the minutes, I was looking through the agenda pack here tonight. I just wanted to ask, will we have the response to, I believe it was Brianna Leba coming this evening? I know she wanted to hear back. I think we're waiting to hear back from the Ministry of Education. I believe Superintendent Sakato was reaching out to find out about the classifications when it in respect to ADHD. So will that be coming? I think that was supposed to come to this meeting. I just wanted to make sure.
Through you, Chair. Yes, Trustee Ellis, we are bringing that agenda item back to our motion action log section for the June meeting.
Got it. But sorry, and forgive me on this part. I was just wondering, was that not supposed to come to this meeting, or did the ministry not respond yet?
So we already had the delegation response. What happened the meeting after? She had further questions, and you had further questions forming that. We have heard back from the ministry, but not in time to compile our response and their response in a way that was appropriate. We just received it recently, so we will have it on the June agenda.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. So then, trustee Alves, would you like to move for approval of the minutes?
I would be glad to. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and do we have a seconder? Thank you, Kevin. All right, we get to our delegation. And I'm going to invite Katie Allen up to, where's she gonna? Oh, you are at a mic.
I am at a mic.
Wonderful. Okay. So you have 10 minutes and then we'll.
Chair, I just have copies of my presentation, so people can have hard copies to take notes or, have additional time to look at things as they go.
Okay, great.
So I thank you everyone for having me for tonight. My name is Katie Allen and I am the mother of 3 children who attend school within the Peel District School Board. Today I'm here to talk about the full day special education elementary communications program that is within the Peel District School Board that supports our most vulnerable learners who are struggling to learn how to read. I'm not only representing myself, but other parents that are here today and those of us that are joining online as well. So first, let's take a look at reading rights within Canada. Learning to read has been determined to be a basic and essential human rights within Canada by the Supreme Court 2012 ruling. The 2019 Human Rights Commission Right to Read report showed that when students have a difficult time learning to read, it can also affect their confidence, their academic abilities, their overall self-esteem, and lead to significant mental health concerns. The inquiry also heard that many students describe themselves as stupid because they cannot read, even though reading disabilities have nothing to do with intelligence. So of note from that 2019 Right to Read report, they found that Ontario school boards need to use intensive programs earlier as the first line of intervention when students are behind peers of their same age in critical reading skills. That boards were withholding these interventions and only using them after ineffective tier 2 supports had failed. This shows that school board supports within our province were not meeting the needs of students, and the intensive programs have been withheld from those who need them the most. Rather than an early and intensive intervention and remediation, students have been left to continue to fall further behind their peers. Students with learning disabilities have 2 to 3 times more likely to experience mental health challenges. And this is not about students who just need a little bit of extra time to pick up concepts, but rather students with diagnosed learning disabilities that fundamentally learn differently than the general population. Standard approaches do not work with these students, and other unique methodologies are needed to help them reach their full potential. So what does the current system look like in Peel? Currently, we have the communications program that is offered in a contained classroom with 8 students and 1 Empower trained teacher. We have 35 of these classes within the Peel District School Board, and Empower was a program that was developed by Sick Kids Hospital to teach children with learning disabilities how to read. The Empower reading program is provided daily to students within their class, and they offer wraparound programming not only to support the students with their reading learning disability, but across all subjects. You've heard from the Superintendent of Special Education about the proposed changes to this program at some of your previous meetings this year, and that is now being called the Elementary Communications Class Pilot. Please take note of the word pilot. We'll be coming back to that shortly. The program for 2024-2025 year would strip the vulnerable students out of the contained classrooms and move them into a withdrawal support model instead. They're going to be placed in regular classrooms and then withdrawn for 80 minutes a day for Empower Learning with a centralized teacher. There's going to be 18 communication cluster schools that will be used rather than the 35 communication classes that are available. And this impacts approximately just under 300 students within our school board. So why is this project called a pilot? A pilot project is defined as a small-scale implementation of an idea or test to test the viability and success rate of a new idea. The pilot project enables an organization to manage the risks, identify deficiencies, and potential successes before substantial changes are being made and committing resources to it. So let's be clear, the 2024-2025 communications class pilot is not a pilot project. It's not a small scale test. to prove the viability of the withdrawal program. It's an outright cancellation of the current full day program and a replacement with a lower level of support for our students. Now, you might be wondering, the Empower program has been around for a while. Has somebody already run a pilot program using withdrawal support to see how it works? And the answer is yes. The Ministry of Education funded the Learning Disability Intensive Reading Pilot project, which ran from 2016 to 2020. They took a sample of 70 to 80 students and found that using the withdrawal model, where the students are in a regular classroom and taken out for Empower lessons, like is being proposed with the Peel District School Board, only 41% of students received the 110 hours of the Empower program. This shows just how difficult it is with a withdrawal program to ensure that students are actually completing the program that's being offered to them. 59% of the students were once again left behind and did not fully benefit from the interventions that were in place to help them learn how to read. So please consider, what data does the Peel District School Board have for the success of the proposed model for next year? And what evidence is there to support a complete switchover from the full day model to a withdrawal program? The implementation of a withdrawal program is a step backwards for the Peel District School Board. Many students in the full day special education communication program have already done with withdrawal Empower at their home school. That support was not enough for their learning needs. And we know that a one-size-fits-all model does not work for the students within our board. This is why the full day program was a next level of support for those students. The large mainstream classes do not support those with complex learning disabilities in other subjects as they're struggling with reading. And students require a learning environment where they feel safe to develop their self-esteem and confidence. These children know that they're different from their peers, but the full day communication class provides them with a safe space to learn and to be supported. The Right to Read report highlights the many consequences to student mental health and school avoidance when this sort of environment has not been provided. Now, you may be wondering, it's already the end of May, why are we only here now talking about this? Well, there has been a lack of communication between the school board with students and families and with yourself, the Special Education Advisory Committee, around the full day communications program cancellation. So you can review these timelines and I'm happy to discuss them further, but there have been many barriers put up at every step of the way to ensure that parents have not been able to get clear answers about our concerns for this program. Families should not be learning about the details of program changes from the Toronto Star, and consultations need to happen before decisions are made. So what are we looking for and why am I here today? We have 4 things that we'd like your partnership and support around. The first is to keep current students in the full day program until you have data to show that a withdrawal program is as good or an improvement to the current full day model that these students have been admitted to by your own IPRC group. Early intensive interventions were not offered to these students, and please do not continue to the cycle of withholding the level of support that they need. Second, show me the data. I'm open, I have a science background, I'm open to pilot projects, so let's actually run a real pilot project with the withdrawal communication in a small group of incoming students. We'd be able to test them with 1 to 2 communication cluster schools to prove that the new model works as good or better than the current full day model, and then make the switch after we have that evidence. Third, please share the questions and answers from the consultations that were apparently done around this change. So there were supposed to be teacher, parent, and student consultations when changing from the full day to the withdrawal model of Empower. I would like these to be provided within 1 week of this meeting, if possible, to provide full transparency of what information was provided to families and when. And lastly, moving forward, we demand clear and timely communication and consultations with all families regarding changes for programs for special needs students. The consultation needs to be transparent, and most importantly, the results of those consultations need to be shared with the stakeholders, which include the Special Education Advisory Committee and parents and impacted families. Our most vulnerable students need Peel District School Board and the Special Education Advisory Committee to move forward with evidence-based approaches to special education and learning disabilities. We need to keep the full day communication program until we have evidence that a withdrawal model works as well or better than the current program. Our kids are counting on you to help them reach their full potential after the education system has failed them in their early educational career when it comes to literacy skills. We look forward to your continued partnership that puts student needs first.
Excellent. And thank you for the slides. I'm pretty sure that the committee appreciates having the slides available to them. As often that is a request after a presentation. Does it? So I'm receiving your delegation, and at this point, I'm going to ask: are there any questions from the community members? Any clarification that you need? Yes, Jennifer.
Given the short timeline, what happens next for the students, and how do we get this message further so the changes can be made? That's what's appropriate.
It's a good question. Is that something that we're going to answer now?
So no, we just moved to receive the delegation, and then we have an opportunity to meet as a team, and along with the director's office to come with a response back to the next meeting. So it's part.
So I have a question. You mentioned consultation. Was there a consultation, or are you asking if there was a consultation?
That's a great question. So there was a letter and a survey provided to parents. So you have a couple of extra pages in your extra slides for the presentation, and it includes the letter that was sent home to parents, and it said that there was going to be a change, but nowhere in the letter did it say what the changes were, specifically that it was changing from contained classroom to a withdrawal model. I have the only place that I have read that, like in writing, that was sent. Well, it wasn't sent to me. I read it in the Toronto Star. There was a survey that was attached to that. I no longer have access to that survey and the questions, and I didn't take screenshots at the time of what the questions were. But from what I remember, it was asking how much do we like and appreciate the communications program. So I rated it very highly because my daughter, couldn't read, and she read me a book on Mother's Day for the first time. So I have rated it very highly because we've seen such growth with her. But I'm not sure how that feedback was used and then construed potentially as, oh, the parents were very helpful, because the letter that was provided to us never said that it was changing from a withdrawal program. It talked about the intervention supports and all the stuff that they get currently. So I'd like to see what were the questions and what the answers were, because that was never provided to us as families. And I went back and watched the recordings of your January meeting, which was when they first said that they were going to do the consultations. And then in the February meeting, they said the changes were happening, but there was no presentation on what the consultations were. And I don't know that any student consultations were done or how they were done.
Okay, thank you. We no results of any survey were brought to us for information purposes when we were told about these changes either, which would not something that would normally happen. So can we see the survey results?
Yep, we can share that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Jennifer, one more question.
Maybe just that review that was done should probably be in a special education report.
Thank you. What did you do?
Do we have any questions online? No. All right. So thank you for coming. We've received the report and we Other questions? And we got our clarification. That was a really fulsome delegation. Really well prepared delegation. I want to compliment you on that because we've had some interesting ones.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you for having me, and I will be in touch with many of you over the next few weeks. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so we are going to move on in our meeting. Sorry, just my printed copy. We're going to move on to reports from officials and staff, and the first item on the agenda is 7.1, which is the superintendent's report, and this is an oral report.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Thank you all for being here with us this evening, and a special welcome to all the families that have joined us this evening. I'm pleased to present a brief report on our ongoing efforts to enhance the equity of access, experience, and outcomes for students with disabilities in collaboration with SEAC members and the PDSB community. I'm thrilled to share that the Special Education and Social Emotional Learning Department has been honored with many awards of distinction and awards of excellence this month. These awards are given for excellence in education, especially pertaining to support of special education students. This year, CECIL staff has had 23 recipients, our highest number ever, including one community member, Tricia Sampson from the Elizabeth Fry Foundation. We're really proud of the outstanding staff and the outstanding partnerships we have in community. I am thrilled to share that we have signed a memorandum of understanding with Ryan Machette from Imagine Consultants. Our team will be working alongside of Ryan and the Ministry of Labor to provide workplace placement opportunities for students with disabilities. Ryan has already begun his work in schools, and there are plans for summer writing to build capacity in schools so that we can implement those across the system. This is a part of our continued support of the Vocational One program and all students in DD, ASD, and other programmings. We have reviewed summer funding for special education programs and will be running Camp Possible once again this year. We will look at how best to use the funds to provide the most fulsome program for students in grades 1 to 21 who have accessed any special education supports during the 2023 school year. We have put a call for presentations to come and are really excited about the many opportunities we will be providing students. We will provide a fulsome list of what experiences are available after all the applications are in at the next meeting. We have launched a new mental health service poster and postcard. I'm going to show, I feel like Vanna White when I do this. That shares and gives students direct access to information about mental health, contact for crisis intervention services, and community clinical services, including identity-specific supports. We have sent out over 6,500 posters to schools and 10,000 postcards individually to students who want to be able to access them. So we're really, really thrilled about the ongoing supports for students with mental health. We are in the process of hiring 5 full-time registered mental health professionals to provide bridging services for mental health and other supports over the summer. We know that while most of our schools are closing, that the needs of students continue. They will be providing individual counseling, group counseling, and of course, continued service on the Be Well support line. These 5 staff are in addition to the regular July and August support staff and will provide a smoother transition to and from summer months for students and families accessing mental health supports from the PDSB. Mental Health Month is in full swing, and almost daily events for students, family, and staff are happening. We have engaged in our internal staff and external partners to provide lots of information for students, staff, and families about mental health services and mental health literacy. Some highlights include a jack.org speaker for students, a community service provider panel, and a keynote address from the George Hull Center. We are grateful for the work of the organizing committee to put together this excellent collection of mental health promotion events for our students and families. We are speech and language department has been working hard with our team and do many amazing things to support students across the system. Some examples of the work that our speech and language team are doing is collaborating with our itinerant teachers to create and provide 3 days of workshops for educators for supporting students with complex needs for literacy. Collaboration with U of T to pilot literacy screener for multilingual students. One of our SLPs is providing professional learning to EAs to support them in helping students with early communication development, as well as how to use visual supports during routines to bolster comprehension and expression. There's been collaboration with the Central Literacy Writing Team to provide a Read, Write, Soar event, parent sessions, and literacy learning at home. There's been collaboration with the regional communications programs, implementing the direct reading instruction using the literal change program in secondary schools. Speech and language pathologists will be supporting pre and post testing for this pilot project in secondary, providing planning provisions of 73 SLP assessments on Saturdays and summers to make sure that all of our students who require assessments are getting them. And participation in PL for administrator heads of spec eds regarding communication, language, literacy, speech to increase awareness of what the speech and language can offer for early literacy interventions. Finally, 3 of our ASD special needs itinerant teachers and 1 speech and language pathologist have been studying the work of 2 researchers focused on literacy instructions for students with complex learning needs for over a year. Their interest in this research fueled the development of a resource website and training slide deck with the support and input from other members of our special education department, as well as from the literacy coaches, resource teachers, and the curriculum department. On May 7th, 8th, and 9th, professional learning sessions on literacy and ABA strategies were provided to more than 250 ASD, DD, ASD congregated classroom teachers. These foundational concepts of day-long professional learning session was that all students can benefit from literacy instruction, and that every student is on a continuum of learning from emergent to conventional literacy learning. All students can read in some way. There is no such thing as a pre-emergent literacy learner, so all students must be provided with literacy instruction that will effectively support gains along the continuum of literacy skills. Each teacher that attended the professional learning session received a book entitled Comprehensive Literacy for All, Teaching Students with Significant Disabilities to Read and Write by Dr. Kay Erickson and Dr. D. Copenhaver, and has access to the website with links to many instructional materials and learning so that they can continue this in classrooms with students. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have questions? Yes, Jennifer?
So I mentioned this before, I'm gonna mention again, I don't know if you need a motion, but that was a lot of information for us to take in and actually ask you questions about. So we really need that in writing. And I don't know if that requires a motion, but I'd really like to see your report in writing in the future. That, I don't know, do I need to make a motion on that? Or is that something we can do going forward?
Through you, Chair. Yes, the issue is with the timing, because often I'm getting information from my teams to share my report up until yesterday. And having it ready for the agenda would mean that I'm only giving you half the information.
It doesn't have to be in the agenda. Yeah. You could hand it out as we come in. I mean, it's not ideal. Like, it's not a very accessible format for people. Sure. We don't know what people in the room need. So we need to have it in writing. And even if it is, I mean, ideally in the agenda, but we want all the information. So maybe it's a combination of it in the agenda, and then we get
sure. Let me take that back, and it's something I can look into. Absolutely.
Or some sort of point form, right? Yeah, some sort of highlighting form. Yeah. Does any? Yes, Pat?
I had a question regarding the QR codes on the mental health poster.
Mm-hmm.
Did I not hear that students in grades 1 to 8 are not going to be allowed to have their phones at school or in the class?
So through you, Chair, that is an announcement that, yes, I believe the Ministry of Education has done, but as a board, we have not begun to discuss how we would implement that in our school board. We can bring those decisions back to SEAC.
Well, I'm just questioning the usefulness of the QR code on the poster.
Yeah, it also has websites that they can go to too, so they don't have to necessarily have a QR code. There are websites underneath each of the QR codes that they can document down and go back to. So probably if you can't see that part, but see if QR code is here and the website is listed below.
Okay.
So it'll still be accessible to all students.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, even with this bit.ly thing?
Yeah, bit.ly is like a website.
That's a website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you wanted just to type that into the search engine, it would come up and it's accessible.
Kevin?
I had a question on the poster again. Do you have like something pocket size? Because a lot of students don't want to stand there and write that down or take pictures.
Yes, we did share that there are also postcards that we made as well.
Okay.
So we put actually more postcards out so students can just pick one up and take it with them. So it's not even something that they would have to stand and like hover over and look like they're seeking that support. We actually sent out over 10,000 postcards to the schools and targeted certainly guidance departments and the office and contact rooms and things where kids would be able just to pick them up and take them with them. So that was our hope.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody online? Yes, trustee Elvis?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to, I put my hand up when Miss Knight was offering comment about your report. So I'll start off by thanking you, Superintendent Sakato. I thought that was a wonderful report. But to Miss Knight's point, it would be quite a lot easier to kind of digest that information. And you made an interesting comment about, getting information up until the day before. You're getting information up until the day before. Committee members need kind of the time to prepare our questions so that we can utilize this time as best we can, especially on nights like tonight where we have an agenda that's, I think, well into the 150 pages or just shy of that. So I'm wondering, if we can't get all the information in for this agenda for it to be a written report, maybe we can push it to the next agenda where we can, get the answers we need and kind of prepare questions for it, or maybe offer a different kind of avenue where if we do want to bring it to the next meeting, maybe the oral report happens, but in the meeting coming, we offer time to question the report from the meeting prior, where folks are able to kind of look through the transcript and get the questions rolling. Would something like that work?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, certainly something that we can talk about as far as process goes. Thank you.
Yes. Jazzy.
Yeah. So I know like children have their PDSB net login page. Is information accessible, like mental health information accessible on their PDSB net page?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, it's accessible in multiple locations, but we do have even pop-ups that come up for kids. We talked about having pop-ups that came up or having, but yes, it is accessible through that as well.
And for parents too?
So we do have an external facing access to families as well.
Anybody else? Okay, trustee Elvis, would you like to move or receipt of that report then? And Jennifer, you like to second it? Oh, yeah, no, sorry, Jennifer, I interrupted you.
So you talked about the summer funding for Camp Possible. That's that can be discussed with SEAC at all, the plans are for that program before it's decided.
So through you, Chair, yeah, we had offered and we've selected feedback from last year that SEAC members were hoping that we'd have in-person offerings. We did take that feedback from our last Camp Possible and have asked for in-person requests for from educators as well. So we have taken that feedback. The Camp Possible selection was really open to, anything of interest that teachers wanted to teach about that was outside of curriculum to bring students in together for partnership and, work on their adaptive skills and things like that. So the guidelines for application were very fluid and open. But based on the feedback from SEAC last year, we are hoping to be able to provide more in-person programming.
So with that, you second, or
I was thinking that.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2. Educational assistance staffing, and again, that's an oral report.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I'd like to ask Executive Officer of Human Resources, Masma Kengora, to share that oral report with you.
Thank you, Superintendent Scacaro, and through you, Chair Foster. I'm delighted here to present a report on the educational assistance staffing. We want to recognize that PDSB educational assistants play a crucial role in the academic and personal developments of students, working closely with the most vulnerable students within PDSB with diverse special educational needs. Their dedication is evident in their diverse responsibilities, which include creating supportive learning environments, assisting with programming as needed, and providing individualized support for safety and personal care to students. Despite their commitments, educational assistants face significant challenges such as high injury rates due to increased student stress behaviors, complex needs, with many reporting experiences of physical harm. This has contributed to increased absenteeism, further straining the educational system and impacting student learning and safety. To support students effectively, schools implement various strategies, including shifting staffing resources where they're needed for student safety concerns, and inclusive education practices as well. These measures aim to foster a positive school culture and ensure that all students receive the attention and resources they need to thrive. The hard work of EAs, coupled with the challenges they face, underscores the importance of providing them with a safe working environment and adequate support to continue their vital role in education. I'll provide you a brief overview of the initiative and certainly provide you a background in terms of how many EAs do we have in our system supporting students. So currently PDSB has 2,165 permanent educational assistants and approximately around 1,371 casual educational assistants. Our EA fill rates have improved by an average of 10% year over year from September to April. This improvement is attributed to the implementation of strategic initiatives, including the following: implementing incentive program. This introduction of the incentive program has played a vital role in motivating staff. Educational assistants working more than 12 days per month are provided an incentive of $100 each. In the months of November to March, the objective was met over 600 times. This incentive will continue until June 2024 in order to further incentivize casual EA candidates to accept assignments. Continued hiring initiatives. Over the last year, PDSB conducted more than 300 interviews specifically for casual EAs, with an estimate of 150 interviews completed since December alone. The successful candidates are added to the casual education assistant pool. Having EA students completing practicums within our own schools, schools are able to interview and hire EA students that are completing a practicum at their school. Currently, 25 PDSB schools have commenced this process. And we know that we've seen some good results coming out of that hiring initiative. Furthermore, the establishment of an educational assistant apprenticeship program is a new initiative underway that can significantly contribute to professional development. By collaborating with special education and the Ministry of Labor, this program promises to offer a structured approach to acquiring the necessary skills and educational qualifications for staff interested in becoming educational assistants. Once implemented, it will not only enhance the capabilities of our current staff, but also strengthen the overall educational support system within our institution. Our creative strategies have resulted in a 43% increase to the number of casual educational assistants at the PDSB. As stated previously, we have 1,371 casual educational assistants in our pool, a notable increase from the September count of 960. That's approximately just about 400 added to the list. It is important to consider that PDSB's hourly rate compensation for educational assistants is competitive with other school boards in the GTA. As we continue to look forward, Human Resources remains focused in its commitment to support our schools, ensuring the continued success of our dynamic workforce initiatives. With that, I conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have questions? Jennifer, go ahead.
So this report is in response to some questions that I had sent regarding contained classrooms being shut down and parents being called to pick up their students first thing in the morning. And so my questions, the main one I think is, what is the root cause of all of this absenteeism and what are we doing about it? So I appreciate that there's a lot of work being done to increase our pool, but we obviously have a lot of EAs that are currently unhappy, leaving the board, taking a lot of days off, or they're sick, they're injured, as you said. So have you guys established what the cause of the absenteeisms are? I mean, the ones I know about from talking to EAs, but have you done an investigation to actually understand why we have the absenteeism and what are we doing to fix that, other than finding more people to fill in, because we know that our students, it's not ideal to have different rotating people coming into these classrooms. We have these rotating classrooms and we have new people in every day. And the children are not being treated with dignity. They're not getting their needs met at all. It's not acceptable. Okay. So a few of the other questions were, how often is this happening? What are your procedures on closing down these classrooms and all these things? So I don't feel that anything I'm asking is really been answered by this presentation, unfortunately. I do appreciate that you're hiring more people and you're encouraging people to come into the program, but if they're only going to come in and become EAs to leave us again, go somewhere else, be injured, leave, what's our longer term plan? Thank you.
So thank you for that question, and through you, Chair. Those are all valid concerns and I empathize with that. Regarding the closure of classes, that is a site-based decision, and that's primarily to do with student safety. The sites are the best places in terms of superintendents of education, and the principals governing the school are the best people to make that decision, given what's appropriate in that circumstance. Certainly, as I mentioned in my presentation, we respect the work the EAs do and supporting student learning and working. Where there is a need for an educational assistant to take a break where they've been injured, I think that is a justified ask. And that is why we need to maintain those healthy tools so that someone else can come in and replace and provide that reprieve. And certainly our hope is that we support and provide them mental health supports as well. So just like how Superintendent Kokaro had elaborated on the student mental health support, we have active mental health support for our staff as well. So certainly a multi-pronged approach to providing that support to our staff so that they feel valued, welcomed, and healthy to be able to return.
Chair. So how well is your mental health support being utilized? Do we know update on it? Is it working?
We certainly have seen an uptick. I don't have the data right in front of me, but we have certainly seen an uptick in the supports that's provided through a third party, because we have to ensure confidentiality. We do have the employee and family assistance program. We've actually expanded the program to include supports for anybody in the household. That was a significant change that we offered to all of our staff. And that really incentivizes a wraparound support within the home base for that employee or staff who may need that support. Certainly, LifeSpeak is another valuable partner that we have, which is a third-party provider that provides online various formats, whether it's blogs, initiatives, keeping staff engaged and motivated, in participation rates as well.
I guess the main question is, how are we going to know that it's working? Because right now it doesn't appear to be, because what we're doing, we're backfilling. So what metrics are we using to ensure that what we're doing to retain our staff is working?
Through you, Chair, we are participating in many proactive training opportunities for EAs as well. Our department, in partnership with the union, has just created a learning module for EAs that can be taken if you're onboarded new to the board, so you understand kind of the effective practices when students are demonstrating risk behavior. We've done significant amount of training through our SEL department around trauma-informed practices, replacing behavior, risk minimization, how to CPI training. So we provide that opportunity on an ongoing basis. On every PD day for educators through Principal Bertrand's department, we offer EA learning modules so that they can ensure that the skill that they need to develop based on their own experience. We have some very, very experienced EAs in our system, but they have an opportunity to take perhaps new learning. It could be anything from, back care and lifting, which we want people to do properly, to de-escalation strategies. So we've offered many proactive supports as well in response to understanding that, for the people who are kind of at the front line of dealing with students who are demonstrating stress behaviors, that they need the most tools to be supported. So we are proactive in our responses as well, and appreciate the partnership and support from the Human Resources Department in making sure that we have staff. So we have done a lot of those things.
All right, I'll let somebody else talk. If there's other questions, go ahead.
Trustee Elvis, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. I do. I wanted to just ask through you, Chair, if staff can please clarify. I wasn't able to hear or discern. I can't see name tags from here. I wasn't sure which of our superintendents was speaking or which controller. So forgive me for not announcing you by name. But through you, Chair, the word used was absenteeism, and the definition for that is the practice of regularly staying away from work or school without good reason. Do we have a problem with absenteeism where it's unannounced and we're alleging that this practice is being carried out in a kind of what I would define as a short notice? Are we having a problem with absence, which is the state of being away from work?
So thank you for that question, Trustee House. Absenteeism has a broad spectrum. It could range anywhere between 1 day to ongoing concerns that are long-term based. I think in the context of today's presentation, it was in terms of where staff, due to complex needs and stress behaviors, are experiencing injury at work. And then having to rely on getting better, taking time off to really get better and come back with strength and vigor.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I think that helps. And through you, Chair, I have a couple more follow-ups. So this was a little difficult because this was also an oral report. So I tried to piecemeal the bits as you were speaking that I had questions about. Kind of in line with this question on EA absence, you had noted an incentive. Can you just repeat or perhaps just tell me a little bit more about what that incentive is and what the goal is behind it?
Thank you for that question, and for you, Chair. The really goal of implementing an incentive program is to incentivize people to staff to pick up more assignments and backfills for staff who may be away on a short term or a long-term assignment. That is really incentivizing through somebody working for 12 days in a month, certainly receiving an incentive of $100 for that month and on a continuum for the entire year. So this would be a supplement over and above their regular wages.
Thank you. And through you, Chair. So I guess my confusion here is we're saying that, I mean, from what I can understand from the report, is that staff are missing work because they're genuinely sick, ill, or injured or recovering. I don't understand how the incentive would help get more people to cover if they're off because they're injured. The part two that I have there is you had mentioned that the staff that are coming in that we're trying to incentivize are casually employed. Is there a reason why we would just hire casual coverage? Or are we not able to just hire more EAs if the need is there?
So thank you for that question. We do have a bench strength of 2,165 permanent EAs. And so certainly the unpredictability of when someone will need to take that time off, the casual pool supplements that need for when the need arises for someone to take time off, particularly in the permanent.
Understood. And then I just wanted to follow up on Ms. Knight's question. Ms. Knight was asking what metric are we using to identify when our strategies are successful? And Superintendent Sakato gave a wonderful response talking about some proactive approaches that we're using to prevent absence from happening. But how do we know that these strategies, like what tool are we using to measure whether or not these strategies are being effective? Are we just looking at absence rate moving forward, or do we have a target in mind of what we're trying to achieve?
So thank you for that question. I think it's a multi-pronged approach, one of which is certainly bolstering our training and supplementing the work that's carried on every day. We also have the health promotion program that supplements the absenteeism, and certainly targeted care for staff who do require that targeted care by the board. Implementing incentive programs is another supplement to really tackling staffing needs. And then continuum hiring of staff throughout the year helps keeps our pools healthy, where at times attrition does occur for various reasons, and it keeps a robust pool of casual staff available and ready to work.
Wonderful. And through you, Chair,
Sorry, can I just interrupt, because I don't think your question was answered.
No,
If you
no,
were
sure,
asking, you were asking for a measurement of how do we know that this is working, that these particular interventions are working. So we have this many absences, or this many people were just leaving the job. Well, now we have less absences, we have more people staying on, we have less people quitting. So that would be an indication that this was improving
Sorry, Chair, that's
our
my line.
retention.
Oh,
So I
sorry.
think he was asking for what metric you were using to
Sorry, Chair.
establish.
I can just finish my response. Sorry, Chair. If I could just finish my response, I think I have a follow-up to get to that point. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no problem at all.
ADHD moment.
That's okay. No problem at all. And through you, Chair. So I heard there training, health promotion, targeted care, incentives, and continual hiring. But what metric are we using to know if all of these multi-pronged approaches are working? Do we have a targeted number? Do we have a number in mind that we're trying to get to, a threshold we're trying to breach when it comes to the number of absences that we're seeing for EAs within a school calendar year?
So thank you for that. As I mentioned, it requires a complex response to something I know is straightforward. Because of the unpredictability and the nature of what may come to a staff on a particular given day, certainly staffing challenges are one of those. Absenteeism on its own is one issue to tackle, and then certainly training is another aspect. So I think in response to the question that you asked, it's a multi-pronged approach with multi-pronged indicators of success, each one individually measuring its success with the data that is generated. For instance, from our absenteeism and the health promotion program, there is data generated that we analyze on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis. The program is a 12-month rolling program with a third party providing us with some industry benchmarks as well. So each program in its own provides benchmarks against which we would then either provide supports or create our success indicators.
Understood. Thank you. That does help. Through you, Chair. I suppose my last question would be, and this is my final question here as it relates to this oral report. Do we know how many, and if for privacy reasons we can't say, but I imagine the number is larger than 10, so I think we might be able to disclose, but I'll defer to staff on this. Do we know how many EA absences we're dealing with per school calendar year, or perhaps we can look at like a comparison for 22 to 23?
Thank you for that question, and through you, Chair. I certainly won't have that at the tip of my hands, but I can certainly take that back and provide you a comparison year over year for 2 years. But I want to be mindful coming out of COVID, our circumstances certainly we were in that adjustment phase, and I want us to be respectful of what staff would have been facing at that time coming out of COVID and really adjusting to the new pace and the new realities of life. One other piece that I really want to mention, and we're not alone in this, we also know the struggles exist with all other school boards, and I'm constantly in touch with other heads of HR, and certainly through Superintendent Skokaro and her leadership within the realm of special education throughout the province. We are together in this, and each one of us really does feel where students are impacted on a daily basis. So thank you. Thank you.
Barb?
Regarding the casual EAs, do they take any placement, or are some of them long-term and then some of them take short-term?
So thank you for that question. Certainly there's a combination where they are incentivized to either pick up daily absences depending on how it fits within their schedules. We also know that EAs typically would have another source of income. And so some who are available to pick up a long-term assignment, they're able to pick up a long-term assignment along with short-term.
So that would be on a case-by-case basis, or are there like Anne only does short-term and Betty does long-term?
It's on a case-by-case basis, and it's at the discretion of staff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Kevin?
Thank you. It was sort of following on from previous comments. So if we could have the percentage of EAs that are absent on average, but also what is the percentage of turnover in terms of attrition? You know, it's great having 1,300, but if they're, you know, 1/3 of them are going to turn over every year, that's not good either. So if we could have that data as well, that'd be great.
Thank you for that. And through your chair, we'll take that back.
And Jennifer, you have another question?
Yeah. So you did mention that the EA fill rate is improving. Can you give us a bit more information about that? How much has it improved?
Certainly, our EA fill rates have improved by an average of 10% year over year. Yeah, from September of this year, this school year, sorry, to April of the school year.
So they would be at 10%. Well, so what was the fill rate in September?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, consultation going on.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I don't think a lot of the questions I've asked here have been answered yet. So I appreciate this report on, you know, what we're doing to address it. I'm not sure we totally have the root cause, but the number of special education classes that are closed, how they're reported, if we're identifying that they're actually human rights violations.
So through you, Chair, I think Executive Manager Kungur did share that the decision to close classes are a decision made by both the principal and the superintendent of education in the field. We centrally do not collect data on the number of closures per class. That would be something that the principal and field superintendent would do.
Get that information.
So
I think it's something we should all be aware of.
So I'm not sure that there's not a system in place where we ask them to share that centrally. So we could maybe think about that moving forward as, you know, us collecting data or having them collect data, because it's not, again, a decision that Massimo and I made together. It's done by, as you know, shared was that the principal knows the safety and well-being and meet specific needs of the students that are in their buildings, some of who require level 4 specialized EAs to provide their care, and we have to honor that, you know, that care needs to be in place. So that's a decision made, but I can take that back around if there's an ability to collect that data.
Yeah, I would think as a special education group, we would want to know when our students are being sent home. That is we're denying them their education, right? It's a violation, and we need to be aware that that's happening and be aware that we fixed it. So if we don't even know how much is happening, how do we know when we fix the problem? So I think that's very important that we get that information, that we're aware of it, and you guys are aware of how many classes, because it stuns me that you don't know how many classes are closed. But and then are there any procedures and policies around that for the principals and the superintendents?
Thank you. We do release periodically best practices and guidelines in terms of what to consider. And really shutting down a class is our least preferred and lowest priority. I mean, lowest in the order of operations. It's lowest in those order of operations. So there are guidelines that are provided and for both secondary and elementary as well.
Is that something that's available to the public?
Those are internal operational documents, and so at this point in time, they're available to administrators to exercise their decision making.
Okay. So yes.
Sorry, I had a follow up to your. I just needed clarification of that the information that I'm providing is in the correct order. So we've got data that we track on a weekly basis. So year over year, for instance, last year in September, the first week, year over year improvement by 14.29% in backfill rates. Second week, it went up to 23.53% year over year. So when I say year over year, that's 22-23 to 23-24.
So
So 2 year.
understood this percentage. What is the actual?
So it'll vary at different times of the year. So September would have started somewhere between 64% and 53%. So that's the range that it
Points half of the position point built in. And where are we now?
So right now, it's looking like 33%.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to move for receipt of that report then?
Sure.
Okay, thank you for answering the questions and obviously we're expressing that we do support our EAs and that they make an important contribution to the learning of our kids. And so we do like to know that they're being supported, they're being well supported and they have the tools available to them so that they can conduct themselves safely. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Kevin, would you like to second it? Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the big part, the big huge part of our report, and it's the Special Education Plan 2023-2024.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I'd like to ask Special Programs Coordinator K-12 Patricia Campbell to present the report on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Superintendent Scocano, and through you, Chair. Today, we are submitting the board's special education plan for your review and feedback. I'm going to give you just a very brief introduction to the plan and overview. So the board is, one of our responsibilities of the board is to develop, maintain, and periodically update and amend a special education plan, which is submitted to the ministry for review. One of the purposes of the special education plan is to inform the ministry and the public about the programs, the special education programs and services that are provided by the board. Updates and amendments to the plan would normally be submitted to the ministry by the 31st of July. You will notice in the plan submitted that the format has changed this year. In the past, it was organized by sections, and in the current plan, it is organized according to the standards set by the ministry. The ministry has set 18 province-wide standards for the development of special education plans. All of the same key information is shared in this plan. It's just that aligning the plan with the standards allows us to streamline the process of gathering, updating, and sharing information. It also has the benefit of standardizing the format more in line with what we will see in several other boards, so that for stakeholders, including parents who navigate between boards, they'll find information in familiar places. The standards, I won't read through all 18 of them. Each of them sets out requirements and they cover areas such as the board's model for special education, the roles involved, procedures and processes, services, and placements. And I'll just pause just to give people a chance to scan that. So you'll notice it will also include pieces like, what assessments are we using. And if you flip to the next slide, so it also speaks to important pieces like the individual education plan, IEPs, things like, sorry, next slide, thanks. Things like equipment, accessibility. Thank you, and transportation. It also speaks to how we interact with, share information with SEAC, and receive feedback and recommendations from it as well. So the plan is, it's fairly intensive, but I think it's like roughly 120 pages. So it is a lot of information. We really would value your feedback on it. So there's a process in place for how you can provide that. Within today's agenda, you'll find a link to a Google form that allows you to give feedback by standard feedback, comments, questions, concerns. I believe the timeline for that is by June the 7th. That's it. Thank you.
Right. Has anybody had a chance to read the 121 pages?
Thank you. And through you, we really are looking to collect the feedback and questions through the Google Doc. In respect to the entire CECIL team that developed this was in coordination with our PSSP staff, social workers, psychologists, school-based staff, that we want to collect feedback and make sure we take feedback to the development committee meeting and be able to implement it comprehensively. So our preference is that all feedback go through the form, so we have it documented and are able to address each question and or concern that was raised. So we will be happy to have that feedback through the digital, and thanks to Jennifer Knight, who ensured that the link is accessible to everybody on SEAC, and it was tested today, so we can make sure that that happens. So there's no need to respond today.
So it does work, Jennifer?
It works, yes.
I'm gonna be honest with you, with my ADHD, I'm probably not gonna click the link, not gonna provide the feedback. Maybe on the 6th, because the deadline's right there. Can't guarantee it, because I also have, because I'm a volunteer, and I have a job and I work, and my work is going through a significant change at this moment, so that's particularly on my mind, so I might forget. So is there no time tonight to make some comments?
So through you, Chair, our intention was to allow and give people the time to provide us feedback through the Google Doc, because we want to make sure it's documented. If you'd like to ask questions, we can certainly document them now. But and offer an accommodation for anybody who doesn't want to use the Google form. If you would like to print it out and give us the paper in writing with your comments on stickies, we're certainly happy to receive them that way. We're just trying to compile them all in a way that makes us be accountable for the feedback that we're getting.
Jennifer?
So I find this almost insulting, to be perfectly honest, to hand us 121 pages of documentation and expect us to turn around and give you advice on it in 10 business days, whatever it is, right? This is something we should have been discussing since September, right? There is a lot of stuff. I barely touched the surface, but I already have many concerns about this report or this plan that we haven't been even consulted on at all. I'm not sure what the fix is here, but I certainly think that there should be people here tonight that could have answered questions around this report and the changes that have happened in here and the information that is missing in this document. And to expect us to go off and read this and fill out a Google form for you, and maybe things will change, or maybe we'll never see those again, because frankly, this year, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of you telling us stuff and not listening to our feedback, and not allowing us to even provide feedback. I went through all the agendas for the entire year, and there is one consultation, the rest say for information. I'm frustrated. I know there's a few other people on the board that are frustrated with the way that we've treated here, and we're not given the opportunity to do our jobs. We haven't been this year. I don't know if anyone's there's anything to add to that. But frankly, I would just like it to be noted that SEAC has not been consulted on this report. You're giving us 10 days to look at a report that's 121 pages. It's not sufficient time.
I just want to add to that. I know every year we get a link from the appeal board in terms of doing the survey for special education. And I mean, I fill out that survey every year. I get my families to fill out that survey, but we've never actually seen results from that survey as well. So to read a 140-page document and not knowing, what are the differences to based on the current plan to based on what they're proposing, that would be really nice to see, because again, we don't have the time to read a 140-page document, but nice to be able to get the highlights. So this is what it was before, this is what we're proposing. This is the feedback that we received from the families, and this is what we're implementing. Because it's very challenging to be able to go through that.
I'm also concerned that there isn't any data to go with any of these changes that are being proposed. We don't see the research, we don't see the consultation with parents, with students, or with SEAC. I mean, today is the day that you're offering consultation from now till June 7th. That's not good enough.
I was just gonna say, and as a committee, I think we've highlighted, I think you can gather what we're passionate about or what we've been advocating. And so to see the before and after and say, hey, from September to now, we've heard you, you've mentioned this 10 times, and this is important to you, and this is how it's addressed in the plan, would have served us well too. Because, this forum is to voice what's going well and what's not going so well. And this plan is an opportunity then to highlight and make sure that what's not going so well is addressed for the following school year.
When you see a document this long and you just think 10 days to do it, that's not really a consultation, that's a review at best. And don't see the data, we don't see the costs either. What are the dollars attached to this? So it's a little bit late to drop this in May or September when we really haven't had a chance to go through the details.
And through you, Chair, I'd like to thank everybody for their candor and for their feedback. We do actively listen and take next steps in response to what SEAC has shared. A lot of the reviews we're doing in Vocational 1 or looking at different programs is really in response to what we understand to be the supports that are required. This special education plan had not been comprehensively updated in many years and needed to be in alignment with the ministry standards. So there was a significant amount of work to take the existing document, which, I wasn't here previously, but that was based, I'm hoping, on SEAC feedback and translate that into the services that we're providing as a board. And it was such an intensive work throughout the year. You can imagine writing a 120-page document and translating that work, that considerations were given and considered by the team that sits at SEAC included in there, and perhaps not visible enough, but certainly evident in there. So we understand that it is late coming to you, but it has taken us quite a bit of time to rewrite and make sure we're meeting ministry standards. But we will receive that feedback and look for better consultation processes for the following year. But still hope that in whatever format you feel most comfortable with, that you're willing to share that feedback. Certainly we can look at other opportunities to provide you another access other than the Google Doc. Again, if that's something that some people need to handwrite or hand in, certainly we are open to that, but we just want to store it and make sure we are acknowledging all feedback.
And I think historically we have had breakout sessions to discuss the plan, and we presented, well, this is the change that's been made. What do you think of it? Can you give us any feedback during breakout sessions as opposed to going on a Google Doc? And I don't know. Yeah, I find having the opportunity to have that interaction amongst the representatives and the trustees, it provides an opportunity that you may not have sitting in your house by yourself, looking at a 121-page document. Jennifer?
I also would like to know where the Google document will end up. Will it be a part and submitted with special education plan? Will we see it again?
So through you, Chair, the intention was to take all of the feedback and go through it as a committee, the writing committee, and discuss the viability of that, and certainly come back to you if the changes were accepted or not, or why not. So certainly the intention was at our next meeting to take the feedback and be able to provide kind of the updates that were necessary to the document.
So does that mean you'll be bringing this back to the next meeting?
Yes.
Lost me train of thought.
No, so the intention was to bring back your recommendations, and if changes were made to the plan, we then have to take it to board and then share it with the ministry. So there is an order, and as Coordinator Campbell shared, you know, the deadline for us to submit back to the ministry is the 31st. So
do we have enough time to bring it back to SEAC for final statements and then take it to the trustees and then submit it? Is there enough time?
yes, and through you, Chair, that's yes, that would be our hope that we would take it to the board of trustee, the board meeting in July.
Which is after the SEAC meeting?
Yes, after approval.
I'm just curious as to why SEAC wasn't involved in the writing. In past, I've been part of committees that writing. Dan and I helped write one of the ones several years ago. We sat in these rooms and worked with staff to help write the document. So why are we not including SEAC in these discussions? Why are we not?
Yeah, and through you, Chair, we'll take that back. It's, you know, I am new to the role and certainly wanted to take on the rewrite to make sure we were aligned with ministry expectations and standards, which we were not in the past. So we took that on centrally, but that feedback is received.
Yes, Park?
I have some concerns that there are changes that have already been made, that even if we provide feedback, that these changes are still going to go forward, such as the parent who made a delegation tonight regarding the closing of the communication classes and the decision to close the primary enhanced learning class. Those were done without consultation from SEAC or the parents. It was a decision made by your staff, I assume, and consulted nobody. So is there an opportunity for those decisions to be reversed, considering no consultant, the proper consultation was not done?
We'll certainly look at your feedback, and I'm not sure about the reversal.
That's a no from them. Would anybody care to make a motion regarding the special education plan? Yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question, but I have my hand up to ask a question.
Yeah, for like 10 minutes.
Sorry. Sorry,
No,
I don't see the little hands.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just going to extend the courtesy to my colleagues on the committee. If anyone would like to meet with me if folks are having a hard time making their way through this, I don't mind going through 7.3, the special education plan, with anyone that would like to go through it. I'm going through it on my own anyway to compile my own feedback to the administration. So to that point, if anyone has feedback they want to email me, I'm happy to also fill in the form and kind of get that through. But I'll be going through and providing my own feedback. If anyone else would like to join me or book a meeting with me, I'd be happy to extend my time.
Thank you for that. Then we're going to move on to Dorothy, and then we'll move on to Jeff. Dorothy, Penny?
Hi, thank you for that. Is it possible to extend the deadline because the information is dense?
through you, Chair, yes, we could look at if that is, makes it more, available for feedback, because we do want to collect and include SEAC feedback. We just have deadlines to make those, discuss and make those changes and then present back to you for our next June meeting. So yes, we could push it back if that's helpful. For the coordinating principal, Bertrand, is there a date that we could think about extending to?
If I may, through you, Chair, I think the intent was to get it to the board for June, I believe. Was it July?
July.
So for the feedback to happen on June 7th, I'd have to look into that, as the July board meeting is tentatively already structured, but certainly I can take a look at that and bring that back to the executive and potentially look at adding this as an item for receipt on the July board meeting.
Trustee Clark?
No, I didn't have a question. I just that my colleague Trustee Alves had been trying to get your attention for a while. So I just thought, the report looks pretty fulsome. Thanks.
Oh, Leanne has her hand up.
Hi, thank you very much. Sorry, I had to attend by virtually, and I regret that now based on this. I'm wondering if you're asking for a motion with respect to some direct involvement by SEAC. I'm still stuck on the fact that SEAC has not been involved with this process. I'm astonished. So I'm just wondering, it sounds like there's very little, it sounds like there's a fast track to feedback being given by June 7th. And I just like, this would, to me, seem like what we do. I know I'm still relatively new to the committee, but I guess, so to go to my question would be, with respect to a motion, are we asking for a motion to be directly involved with this report? I don't know who would answer that.
Yes, I think we could pass a motion because we haven't been directly involved in this report. And I think that we should make a motion to not accept this report, not accept this document, and ask the trustees to also not accept this document.
Yeah, I would second that.
Sorry, Chair, may I intervene? I think I might have a point of order, I think.
Go ahead, Elvis. Trustee Elvis.
Thank you, Chair. So I hear my colleagues' concern. I definitely can understand the frustration when staff have, brought this report, and some members of the committee are feeling like they weren't well consulted. I believe the intention, and I don't want to speak for staff, so I'll let staff perhaps interject, but I believe their intention was to receive our feedback through this process. I don't know that they did this in any, and again, I don't want to speak for staff, but I don't believe that they did this in any kind of, nefarious is the wrong word, but I don't think it was ill-intentioned. I think staff's genuine intention was to bring this to us, have us review it. I know I received it 5 days ago. Use those 5 days to draft questions for this evening of clarification, ask those questions of clarification to staff, then have staff go back, us further disseminate the report amongst ourselves individually, perhaps as a group offline, and then provide the feedback again through the Google form. In the June meeting, I believe that's where staff would then propose changes based on that feedback that they received. So I don't believe that staff were ill-intentioned in this. To be frank, in some of our other committees, we have received reports and consultation in a similar matter, but I understand that, this is my first time serving on SEAC, that things might have been done differently in the past. So just looking toward a solution to my colleagues and through you, Chair, is there an opportunity where for this report before us today, understanding that the ministry does have timelines on this, could we take this back? I've offered to extend my time. Staff have offered to go back and look at perhaps moving the deadline slightly. I know Mr. Superintendent De Silva made a comment that he would look into it. Is there an opportunity for us to do kind of our work behind the scenes, provide the feedback in any way we can? Staff have noted they'd be happy to accept it in a variety of forms. And then perhaps for reports coming in future, we look at working with superintendents Claudine Sacato and others to have those breakout sessions. Would that work, Chair?
I definitely think breakout sessions are important to have, especially when you're consulting with a variety of different kinds of minds and the different kinds of people, how people receive information and process information. It's important to have a variety of ways to providing feedback and to give people sufficient time to provide that feedback. So I think the offer of to the committee members to perhaps meet with you. Perhaps maybe you could go on send some emails out suggesting some times to, so when you're available. That's if somebody else would like to meet. And Jennifer Jennifer just put up her hand. I'm sure Jennifer might offer to meet with members also, so we could come up with some sort of have that opportunity to have that back and forth and that discussion that's so important when you're providing this kind of feedback.
And through you, Chair, it is meant as a draft. So this is not in any way a final product or anything like that. So thank you, Trustee Alves, for understanding that we brought you a draft of the special education plan and the consultation is happening through feedback. Now, understood that consultation is preferred by SEAC in person or in breakout groups, but it is a consultative process and it is a draft document that we restructured. So certainly not an end product, and that was the point of bringing it today, is that it is a draft document meant for feedback, consultation, and then review and modifications and amendments. That's exactly the point, but understood that this membership prefers that to happen in person or in different ways rather than having the time to read and provide feedback in that way. So thank you, Trustee Ellis.
Jennifer?
So I understand your view of what this consultation is, but a lot of the decisions are made here. Our feedback in a lot of these areas that we're concerned about is probably pretty irrelevant at this point. So that's a challenge for me. This is not feedback. Like I can tell you that you missed a word or you need a capital. I can tell you that the accessibility plan is 2 years old and you aren't meeting requirements that you need to for the accessibility part of the plan. I can tell you a lot of things that are wrong with this plan, but it seems a little bit too late. Right? That's the issue. It's not that I can go through. I've gone through this. I've found, unfortunately, a number of challenges here that are not good fixes. They're not being fixed by the next meeting, right? And they can't change because you already made the decision. ATRTs are one that I've tried to bring up for probably 5 months. And I've asked you the questions. I'm hoping we can discuss those tonight. Get some answers where that lies. The classrooms we heard about, the gifted programs. I don't know how to, and actually I think I do know how. I think we need to make a motion that we were not consulted on this program, and that needs to go with the plan to the ministry. So they're aware there wasn't proper consultation done. This is not proper consultation. And there hasn't been proper consultation this year, as far as I'm concerned. So we did spend some time drafting up a motion. And I'm not sure, I'm not really good on the process, but I want to make a motion. How do I read this? How does it work?
I think that needs to come at 13.
So, sorry, Chair, are you looking for some advice?
Yes.
Yes, we're looking to some advice as to when she can read her motion. Yeah,
it's emotional.
And we have the
So you can put a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
A mover in a second.
So, yeah, so we can put a motion on the floor and then we,
Response to this report.
in response to this report, and then we need a mover and a seconder. So I guess you would read your motion. And then,
It's a little long and wordy, so I can also send it to you. Okay.
Sorry, through you, Chair, I think, just point of order, I still think we have hands up for
Oh, we have-
questions. And I
we
think
have
in
hands up,
that
sorry.
part, we moved to potentially putting a motion on the floor, so I think that would need to be
okay,
taken
sorry,
out first and then.
Leanne?
Sorry, I'm just following up and in support of Jennifer, and I do want to comment. I don't think anybody's casting aspersions on the staff or anyone else. It's just that this process is insufficient. It's insufficient to come to the SEAC for a commentary as almost more of a public input period. So it's certainly on my behalf is not anything negative about staff. It's simply that this process feels very insufficient. And so if Jennifer is making a motion, I'm happy to listen to that and then second it.
Trustee Elvis, did you have something else to add?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to save my comment for response to the motion. So if Ms. Knight would like to put that on the floor, Ms. Knight would need the motion on the floor, which would be followed by a seconder. Then Ms. Knight would be offered the opportunity to speak to the motion. Typically, then the person who seconds, as best I understand, would speak to the motion. And then we'd go around the room for questions about the motion, and people would be able to speak to it ahead of the vote. So I'll reserve my comment for if we go down that line.
Okay, Jennifer?
All right, so the 2024-25 draft special education plan states Peel District School Board values a strong commitment to working collaboratively with stakeholders, including those represented on the Special Education Advisory Committee. During this collaborative process, the voices of a variety of stakeholders are shared, including school personnel, students, parents, SEAC members, community associations, and agencies, and provide input to the revision process. We do not feel our voices were heard. We were not provided the necessary information or the opportunity to provide feedback in a timely manner regarding the changes to the 2024-25 draft special education plan presented to us. Therefore, we contend the above statement does not correctly reflect what occurred. Whereas Regulation 464-97 states, the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Board may make recommendations to the Board in respect of any matter affecting the establishment, development, and delivery of special education programs and services for the exceptional pupils of the Board. Before making decisions on recommendations, the committee of the Board shall provide an opportunity for committees to be heard before the Board and before any other committees of the Board to which the recommendation is referred. The Board shall ensure that the Special Education Advisory Committee is provided with the opportunity to participate in Board's annual review under Regulation 306 of the revised Regulations of Ontario 1990 of its Special Education Plan. The Board shall ensure that its Special Education Advisory Committee is provided with the opportunity to participate in the Board's annual budget process under Section 231 of the Act as that process relates to special education. The Board shall ensure that its Special Education Advisory Committee is provided with the opportunity to review the financial statements of the Board prepared under Section 252 of the Act, as those statements are related to special education. Whereas the Special Education in Ontario Kindergarten to Grade 12 Part B standards for school boards, Special Education Plan states, Special Education Advisory Committee SEAC makes recommendations to the Board with respect to any matter affecting the establishment, development, and delivery of special education programs and services for exceptional students of the Board. Participates in the Board's annual review of the Special Education Plan, participates in the Board's annual budget process as it relates to special education, and reviews the financial statements of the Board as they relate to special education. The Board's consultation process requirements of standard in developing and modifying their special education plan. Boards must take into consideration the issues and feedback from members of the community, such as parents, members, school councils, community organizations, and students. This public consultation, which takes place with the assistance of the Peel Board's Special Education Advisory Committee, must be maintained on a continuous basis throughout the year. Whereas the PDSB SEAC Committee has only just received this 221-page special education plan outlining the programs and services for students receiving special education for the 2024-25 year, which did not provide sufficient time for true consultation with the SEAC Committee, parents, students, and public. Whereas the proposed special education plan reflects the intermediate autism spectrum disorder special education resources class full-time, says it will have 8 students, and this shows a lack of compliance with Regulation 298 of the Education Act, which states the class size of the special education class full-time for identified as exceptional communication autism is 6 students. Whereas the proposed special education plan is incomplete and does not disclose the roles and responsibilities associated with the former role of the assistive technology resource teacher, nor does it explain what happened to this service or how special education allocation of CF funds are allocated. Whereas the proposed special education plan indicates changes in service model delivery for some exceptionalities, communication classes, primarily gifted contained classes to name two. Whereas the proposed special education plan omits any results or mentions of internal reviews of programs. For example, Lot 1 communication class or gifted primary. Whereas the proposed special education plan reflects an outdated board accessibility plan for students with disabilities. Therefore, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees be made aware that the current proposed plan is not developed in accordance with Regulation 464, which states that SEAC has the right to be consulted in the development of special education plan, nor does it comply with Regulation 298 regarding the size of special education classes, and the Board of Trustees should not vote to pass a special education plan nor submit it to the Ministry of Education in its current form.
So I need somebody to move the motion. Jennifer moved, and Leanne, you said you was second the
Seconded.
motion?
Yeah.
And
We vote, right? No questions.
okay, questions and comments now. And trustee Alvis, I know you had.
Yes, through you, Chair. I'll start by thanking Ms. Knight for bringing a motion. I think it takes a lot of courage to pen a motion and bring it forward. And speaking from personal experience, I know it takes a lot of work to craft a motion, a lot of research that's required. But Ms. Knight, in this specific circumstance, I don't know that I can support your motion. And the reason being is, while I do completely understand you and some of my colleagues here on the committee and their comments about not feeling consulted, I worry that, and staff are here, perhaps they can clarify, I worry that if we delay this work any further, we might be putting the board or students in jeopardy in terms of our compliance with the ministry and working toward the next school year. I think that staff have offered accommodations inclusive of, Associate Director Paul De Silva talking about looking at a deadline change. Superintendent Sakato has noted that she and the administration will work with us in however we would like to provide feedback based on what we're seeing here. Some of our colleagues tonight said that some of this report contains inaccuracies. She said we could ask questions of clarification to staff tonight, so we do have that opportunity in this discourse to be telling staff what we think is or is not correct. I also think that, myself amongst others could potentially create time to meet with members of the committee that perhaps can't get access to that Google form or don't have the ability to fill it out. I know I'll be doing it myself because I have feedback for the report. I think there's a lot here to review, and I'm happy to compile feedback from my colleagues as well. And I'll also say that it's not that just the 10 days that we've had this report. We've had this report for about a week since this meeting, right? We received it about 5 days prior and have had the opportunity to review it. I think some of the comments made by my colleagues are well-founded in respect to, if we feel that the process leading up to this draft need to be changed, we can look at changing them in future. And I know Superintendent Sakato did say that she would look and take back our feedback to reports in future on how they're done, and noted that this is a bit of a different or a new process for her and for some of the staff. So I very respectfully say that I don't think I can support this motion in this instance, not because I'm not hearing you or our colleagues, but simply because I worry that by delaying it, we would be creating an unnecessary risk. And I think that there is still opportunity for us to give staff the feedback that we need to give them, because, again, point A, there may be an opportunity to delay the timeline, but point B, they did indicate that this was a draft and they would absolutely include our feedback that we did provide. So respectfully, I can't support your motion in this case, but again, will make myself absolutely available and we'll follow up with an email to our colleagues to review and provide feedback.
Jennifer, would you like to clarify?
So I would argue that the current plan and the things in there that we are aware already will not be changed, risk our students. Keeping this as it is, we heard today that there are two programs that really don't have any say into. There are things in here. I don't think we have time to go through this process of clarifying all of this. We don't have the time to make it right because we didn't start it soon enough. So I don't know what the solution is, but the current, we don't agree with what you've done and you're not going to change it. So
through you, Chair, if we offered accessibility to myself and central staff and some of the team who created this document to have those small group consultations in lieu of doing it on a Google Doc, would there be interest in us having a meeting, a consultation, small group meeting in person that would allow for voice to be shared or questions to be asked and clarified or feedback to be documented by our team in lieu of doing it through the Google form? I think that, Chair Foster is very good at sharing that many different learning styles are evident here as a group and how we need to share information. And I understand that. I personally am somebody who would rather read it on my own and provide that feedback, but I'm hearing that other people want an opportunity to have discourse and discussion. So if our team could provide small group in the interim next week, that would that allow SEAC to provide that question and answer and discourse?
I guess it's not just about that if you listen, there are other issues within this that if you can tell me we actually have some kind of say on things that are reflected in here, then possibly, but there's a lot of there's the ATRTs, there's the communication class, there's a lot of things that I don't believe you can have a discussion with us that would result in anything different. That's my, it's not just about the consultation process. There's actually a number of these whereas are issues that we can give you the feedback, but it's too late. IPRCs have happened, kids have been put into classes. It's too late.
Sorry, with respect, Chair, I think I'm just going to call point of order. I think, so the motion's already been brought. I think if anything, we need to move forward to the vote. And just in response through you, Chair,
sorry, Trustee Alves, we did have a question from Barb. I'm just going to interrupt you here. And just, we're going to allow Barb one question, and then we'll move on to the vote.
I actually didn't have a question. I just wanted to remind people that this plan, what's in this plan, is going to affect students for many years to come. And it's important that it's right. It already is not in compliance with the Ministry of Education because we're supposed to be consulted on a continuous basis, and that's not happened. From September till now, we have not been consulted on the content of any of the changes within the special education plan. So I don't see how not approving the plan will make any difference other than having a better outcome for the students that this plan affects.
So we've heard from, when we've had some opportunity to clarify, now is the time where we vote whether or not.
Leanne has a question.
Or Leanne? Yeah, sorry. One more.
I just want to be really clear. I don't feel like I haven't been consulted. We haven't been consulted. It is not a feeling. It is a fact. So that is something that I actually am, I think it's not. And so that is why I am seconding the motion. I think this is so important. And this is the role of SEAC. If this is not our role, I don't know what it is. So I feel very strongly about that. And it isn't a feeling. It is a lack of actual consultation. Being invited to give input over a 2-week period is not, to me, the direct involvement of the members of SEAC in this very important process.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thanks.
Trustee Alves, did you have anything more to add?
I suppose would just be a question. So I'm a member of the committee, and in my respect, we have this meeting monthly, and the communications class conversation has been happening for months. We've seen staff bring reports as it relates to special education every month. So that's for clarity, for my point. That's why I use the word feel, because I feel, I have been involved in this in consultation adjacent, especially as it relates to special education. It's a conversation we've been having every month. But that's my only point. I don't have any additional questions, Chair. Thank you.
So we move to vote on the motion.
Hi, Shelley. I've had my hand up for a little bit.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Dorothy.
That's okay. So I'm piggybacking on what's already been stated. It almost feels like perhaps I shouldn't use the terminology feel. It appears as if this is more of a data dump. So a week and a half turnaround to analyze, because that is exactly what you're asking us to do, analyze, and then make a report based on our analysis of what we understand is not sufficient time. Recognizing again that we're working in the capacity of volunteerism and we have other commitments. So it's not just a matter of creating small groups for individuals to possibly make. I think it's too important a process for us to look at it through those lenses. So from my opinion, a week and a half is not sufficient time, even with the accommodations. That's my only say in this. It's not enough time.
Okay. So has everybody had a chance to provide input and ask for clarity? Yes, and
So I'm struggling with this motion because I haven't properly taken it in, I think. Yeah, I've just having a problem making sure that I totally agree with the motion. I mean, I do think that we haven't had enough time and we haven't had enough input over the last few months. But I think I have to abstain from the motion because I don't feel that I'm totally comfortable with it. But I mean, I certainly agree that we should have had more consultation than we've already had.
Yes.
And it would have been nice to do that earlier.
So based on some of the feedback I'm getting, can I just make a suggestion? That we hear the motions. We agree that the intent of the motion as the document stands right now, the intent of the motion is correct, that there are some changes that need to be made and that we all feel that we haven't been provided sufficient amount of time to be consulted on this document, and that there are definite changes that need to be made to this document. The document is obviously not in compliance with some of the ministry regulations that Jennifer has pointed out. If we are allowed the opportunity to be consulted in a way that honors how we process the information, either by providing consultation on Google Docs or by allowing ourselves to go into these small groups, and then we come back in June with a possibly amended document, and at that point, if the document is not amended to ministry standards, and that maybe we can, I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity to reword the motion or to rethink the motion or to, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. What do you think, Art?
There are things in the document that even with consultation are not going to be changed.
Yes.
And the document is not in compliance and can't be brought into compliance because you can't go back in history and start consulting it since September. Because it's now May. It's the end of May.
Yeah.
So I don't see that bringing it back later is going to change anything. It's not in compliance. We haven't been consulted on a continuous basis, as the ministry says, on a continuous basis. It was brought today. Many of the things that were brought to SEAC were brought from information only. They only told us about it. They didn't ask us about it. We weren't given data to back up the decisions that were made, or information about consultation with parents or anybody else.
Okay. Yes, Kevin. Sorry, but we'll go to.
Another question, is this plan like written in stone, or can it be amended on an ongoing basis? Because I'm thinking ahead, would it be useful to have a subcommittee in September? It's the standing committee, subcommittee of this group that deals specifically with the plan, and then we won't get ourselves in this position next year. And I mean, the other thing I want to say is I don't think anyone's casting any aspersions on the staff dedication at all. That would never be the intention, because this is a lot of work and we know that, but we have to do this right. And it's not in its current form, it's not right.
Associated.
Sure, thanks. Through you, Chair. Appreciate everyone's comments here today. I think with respect to, if I may, I think the compliance piece, I think we would have to make amendments, right? So there's no questions about those pieces. Certainly the consultation piece, we can't commit to say that we'll reverse all the changes and we'll look at change those pieces with respect to staffing. I'm not sure we can do that. I'll be quite honest with you about that, certainly. But I am confused. I've sat on this committee for 3 years as the associate director, and I don't remember consultation breakout groups even last year. I don't remember it the year before.
You don't remember?
I don't remember those consultation groups. I'm happy to go back and see and see those, and happy to start, because I understand what I'm hearing, and certainly having those pieces established in September to align with staffing timelines that begin in January. So that's the circle I'm trying to square around timing. And I think having subcommittees in advance to look at and to review and to provide input around any of those pieces, I think is essential as we lead into what we typically start in January for the staffing cycle, to meet timelines around even collective agreements. So that there's the piece that we need to kind of look at. Term letters, term assignments, those pieces all happen at the end of January. So I think we need to start those conversations around all of those programmings and the programmings themselves immediately. And they build over time, starting in September, and then as we roll closer into December and so on and so forth. But the compliance piece I am concerned about as well. Happy to hear and happy to make those adjustments through staff. Absolutely. And thank you for taking the time to go through those with some detail. And happy to extend, like I've said earlier, around when the report can go. We can reach out to the ministry to see if there are any provisions that allow us to move that even further, if you will, so that we can kind of build out a more conversational dialogue before we submit to the ministry. Oh, and just for clarity, I'm just thinking about the motion itself. What is the action of the motion? Because it was lengthy and I was trying to hear. One of my hearing aids dropped out on me, so I can't hear out of my right side. So I'm just trying to understand what it is that the action through the motion is asking us to do or not to do. moving forward, so that all of you can have a pretty fulsome debate around voting on that piece.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I just first wanted to mention that there wasn't necessarily breakouts. They were a few years ago, before your time, and you consulted on it looking inside of this room. But in the past few years, we have had parts of the special education brought to us throughout the year. So it's parts of the plan as you were working on it. We had reports from staff.
I remember the slide deck, it was slide deck. So that's why I'm a bit confused, because I'm thinking about the deep conversations that may or may not have been required. And even last year, I remember at this meeting, some concern over the plan. And so I actually shared with Superintendent Sacato. I said last year there was concern about not having enough time, or the way that the console evolved even last year. So and perhaps our mistake around providing fulsome input through a number of different forums. But I did share that, and so hoping that this would have had more input than not around those pieces, but also understanding that, again, the layering, the timing of things with respect to decisions around staffing aren't connected. So I think, to Kevin's point, we need to get up on it early, and then potentially have some deeper conversations around when rubber hits the road and we have to just make bigger decisions in January, that we've had an opportunity to have at least those smaller group pieces and smaller group discussions.
So maybe adding that particular consultation, that suggestion towards greater consultation and a planning group of SEAC members be included in the motion. What do you think, Jennifer? I think that's a fabulous suggestion, and that, yeah, it'd be something that be ongoing and start, like you said, Kevin, be something that be ongoing rather than it being. And yeah, it does seem that we get this, we get it late. And there's a lot of frustration from SEAC representatives with regards to the whole consultative process. There's a lot of frustration that you can sense it, right? It's just, we as volunteers, we have this amazing trough of knowledge. I myself have sat on this committee for almost 25 years. I've raised 2 adults. I have a degree in psychology from the University of Toronto. I have life experience. I'm not a stupid person, and none of these representatives are, we do this because we have a passion for it. I wouldn't be sitting here this long if I didn't have a passion for these kids, for every kid with special needs, not just the ones with hearing impairments, for every kid with special needs, and for every parent who can't go to the meetings, who isn't that squeaky wheel. For these kids that get stuck in this never-ending search to turn them into these oval pegs that they're into these round pegs, into these round holes, when they're ovals. They're ovals. The majority of them are ovals. And these round holes don't suit them. So every kid has a right to learn and to become a fully functioning human being. And we as SEAC reps feel that we need to be the one to have our knowledge and our experience honored and heard and listened to. And getting this a week and a half before, just doesn't feel like enough time. Sorry, Dorothy?
Thank you for that. If there's an extension, what timeline are we looking at?
Through you, Chair, both have gone now, so I really can't hear anything. So late it is in the evening. I'd love to get back to you on that, because I think I'd really like to determine the latest possible time, so that provides you the greatest amount of opportunity to dig in. So we'd have to get back to you. We'll reach out to the ministry and talk to our executive around where to put that in with respect to a board report.
And how would we be notified as to the deadline for it?
Through you, Chair, we can certainly send that through the SEAC distribution list by email if that's an accessible way for all SEAC members.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Jesse.
I was just gonna say that, you know, my colleagues have meant, you guys have been sitting on the boards for so many years, and you do have so much experience and expertise, and then lived in experience. I've only been a part of the committee for 2 years, and I've seen the approach or the communication style or decision making be very different from last year to this year. And I'm just wondering, like, how do we, as a committee, and how does the board ensure that there is consistency and feedback is shared the following year, and that we're building on it, and we're not taking maybe 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and that feedback isn't lost? Like, what is, I guess I'm just wondering, like, you know, all this feedback, and it's great, like, we're sitting here for 2 hours and giving all this feedback, but how do we ensure that it's not lost? And if Superintendent Zuccato does move on, or, you know, people do move on, people, like, life changes happen, but how do we make sure that we're continuing to build for a better school year the following year? We're not losing all of the great, yeah.
Sorry, Chair, I don't mean to interrupt. I hope you'll forgive me, but I think I need a point of order here. We still have a motion on the floor. So if we're proceeding with the vote, we need to either call the vote, or the author of the motion needs to remove the motion. So if Mrs. Knight wants to withdraw the motion and accept Associate Director Silva's suggestion, which personally I think is quite generous and could work for us, then we need to withdraw the motion.
So I think someone had asked what the actual motion was, and I think we need to go through that. I'm not inclined to remove the motion. You had suggested maybe we add something to it. So what I have here is, therefore it is recommended that the Board of Trustees be made aware that the current proposed plan was not developed in accordance with Regulation 464, which states that SEAC has the right to be consulted in development of the special education plan, nor does it comply with Regulation 298 regarding the size of special education classes. And the Board of Trustees should vote not to pass the special education plan, nor submit it to the Ministry of Education in its current form. And this is what I've added. I'm not sure how that's done legally, or that the board provide a plan for proper timely consultation for the 2024-25 year that includes transparency and data to enable the SEAC committee to form their legislative duty.
That's an amendment.
Okay, so we can do that.
No, you can do
something right here.
Oh, so we go backwards and vote first time.
Sorry, there's a point of order here. This isn't actually going to the Board of Trustees for acceptance, right? So this is coming back. This is a draft. This would be coming back to us in June. So Ms. Knight, if this is, if I'm understanding this correctly, I believe Superintendent Zuccato did confirm this is a draft. So right now, this is up for consultation. So your motion is written, and I say this with the utmost respect. I realize, you know, many of us on this committee don't have a background in governance, so please take this with the utmost respect and admiration. But the motion isn't written correctly. This would, if this motion was coming in June, then this would be going to the July board meeting, but it is not. This is coming to us before our next SEAC meeting. So your motion would need to say something along the lines of, I would recommend this not go to the July meeting, or that it be halted here. The action isn't clear because this isn't going to the Board of Trustees. This is coming back to this very committee in a few weeks, a month.
This isn't a notice of motion. This motion is about something that's on the table right now.
Yes,
We can
that's
make a
correct.
motion about something that's on the table right now,
But the
which
but
we're doing.
with respect through you, Chair, what Mrs. Knight's motion said was that the recommendation, the action was that the Board of Trustees not accept this. But this is not going to the Board of Trustees as it is written. Superintendent Sakata was clear. It's coming back to this committee.
Okay, so if we remove that particular part of the motion,
I
with
believe
that.
if you remove that part of the motion, then there is no action. So
but
I'm just not-
there is an action to, there is an action. There is a further, the amendment of providing a plan for the next one. And then
There's even the Board of Trustees is being made aware.
and making the Board of Trustees aware that as the plan is right now, that it does not. So if we take the part out about the Board of Trustees not passing this particular plan and not accepting this particular plan, if we take that particular motion out and we leave the rest of it in,
Yes, sorry, Chair, again, through
then
you.
that is in compliance. Yes.
I don't know that it is, Chair. I would actually recommend this go to our legal, Evie is her first name, her last name is escaping me, our legal counsel, because I don't think it's compliant. You're welcome to put it on the floor and call the vote, but I don't think it is accurate, and I don't, because this isn't going to the Board of Trustees. This is simply coming to us here at this committee again. But
okay, so you're suggesting it go to legal counsel. Who does this legal counsel represent? And is there legal counsel for SEAC then? Would SEAC be provided in? She's a government. She's an independent legal counsel.
Sorry, Chair. She works for our board, so for all legal matters, we're directing emails to.
She would not be considered independent.
No, sorry, Chair. Give me 1 sec. Our legal governance officer has moved on, so there are a number of people filling in this role. Typically, Mrs. Lockyer would help with authoring motions. So there are 3 people. Lashana does policy, and then Ebby, forgive me for mispronouncing her last name, Chukwonewe is our acting legal counsel. She might be able to speak to the background on the motion, or you can call the vote on it, but I don't think it's correct as it's speaking to the Board of Trustees, but this is coming back to us at SEAC. So if we were to use this motion, even in the latter part, just to make trustees apprised, it would only go to the board in July, but then we're already making amendments to this very policy in the next meeting. So I don't, for that very reason, I don't think it's accurate, but you're welcome to call the vote. I can't support it. I don't think the action is actionable.
This committee has a right to be heard by the board. It's in legislation.
And I agree with you, absolutely.
Well, that means that our recommendations will be heard till July.
Leanne had her hand up. I'm sorry, Barb. We'll let Leanne.
Yeah, I do not want to continue to debate, if there is a need to recraft the motion based on, the fact that we are getting 2 weeks of public input on this, we can review that, but as it stands, in my estimation, what this is indicating is that the SEAC representatives have not been properly consulted in this process, and that the time frame that has been provided in this presentation is insufficient. And I really do not want to continue to wordsmith this based on that. I think we all know what we're trying to say here, do we not? Because I'm starting to feel quite offended. I am a executive director of the Learning Disabilities Association of Peel Region, It is 9:09 at night. I have a daughter who is ill and needs soup. And we are sitting here debating this motion to death. And I think the message of it is very clear. Is it not? Is there somebody that is missing the message of this? Because I don't want this to be thrown out on a technicality. I'm offended at this point, and truly, and I do think that we are all aware of what Jennifer is trying to say, what I'm trying to say, what the other representatives, volunteer representatives on this committee that is specific to special education is trying to say about the fact that we are receiving something that is 225 pages in length and that we are given just a week and a half to give effectively limited feedback on. So is there a way that we can move forward with Jennifer's motion with that that tone, which is I think what we're trying to get across here. So if it's that it's not bouncing back to the entire board at the particular time, fine, do the tweak, but the essence of the motion stands as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do we have time to tweak? Or do you just want it to stand the way it is?
I think you need to take note.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I don't know about is the addendum that I added, which should be
okay
right there, how that works.
Not typical. If you change the original motion, then you have to make an amendment. So you move it and you need another person to second it.
Before the vote happens, you can do that, okay. So
then we vote on your amendment first.
Oh, I see.
It goes backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to ask for the put the amendment there that we add a third item here that the board provide a plan to properly a plan for proper timely consultation for the 2024-25 year that includes transparency and data to enable SEAC committee to perform legislative duties.
Do I have a seconder? Jesse, thanks. And now we're all going to vote on the amendment. Do we all agree with the amendment? Put your hand up. Carrie. All right. And with the amended motion, now we're going to vote on that particular motion. And all right, everybody, raise your hand if you're in agreement with the what's the motion? With the amended motion, the motion with the amendment.
Provide a time.
Provide the time.
I would like to abstain.
Okay. And it's carried.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Chair. I was going to ask for a recorded vote, but I think I might have been too late.
Okay. You can't get recorded vote.
What?
You don't do recorded vote and continue.
You know?
You don't do recorded vote.
Okay.
So
just tell them no recorded vote.
No, oh, sorry.
As long as you got.
Apparently we don't have recorded votes in the meetings, and it's yeah. We just had it's been carried. Okay. Do we have any more discussion with regards to this? The original motion with the amendment, the amendment carried and the original motion. Okay, so now we have to move for receipt of the report. I would like to move for receipt of the report. Jesse, thank you. Angela, would you like to second it? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for presenting. I know it's been interesting. Okay. Right. We're going to move on to 7.4, which is the provincial scan of vision and itinerant services 2023-2024.
Is this the vision services?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just heard it as I was leaving, and then.
Would you like me to wait, Jesse?
Can you move the next item until I get back, just wait or?
You need to,
I need to go to the ladies' room.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
a functional break. First, we're having a functional break.
Nothing's sitting here yet. But she's not doing the presentation.
She's not presenting?
No.
This is just something of interest to her. So it'll have to go back to Jeff. He's presenting.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Welcome back from the functional break. We have one person still out, but I'm wondering if we should just get started. Let's just get started. 7.4.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I would like to ask Coordinating Principal Jeff Bertrand to provide the report for the Provincial Scan of Vision Itinerant Services.
Thank you, Superintendent Sciccato, and through you, Chair. We are sharing information from our jurisdictional scan of boards in Ontario, predominantly around the GTA. Some of this information was shared last month through Superintendent Sciccato's oral report, but we wanted to formalize it and share some of the information we have come across in our consultations with boards, the provincial demonstration schools, and a couple of jurisdictions outside of Ontario, although in the report, we've only included those in Ontario. Okay, so this is sort of the basis of what we asked other boards around criteria for service, what reports they require from families, conditions that are supported. Do they support students with a diagnosis of cerebral visual impairment, or also known as a cortical visual impairment? How do they determine support levels? What tools do they use? And questions around orientation and mobility services. So as I've said, we asked boards across Ontario, though we did focus on boards in the GTA, our neighbors, because they are similar in terms of size and the expected services that they might be able to provide. We consulted with the Provincial School for the Blind extensively throughout this and went back to them a number of times. And then, as I said, we spoke with the ministry around a couple of issues, and then group from BC and one from the Atlantic provinces. So what we found and what is shared in the agenda in more detail is that as a board, we're providing a level of service that matches or exceeds what other boards in the province are providing. We've also learned from our conversations that the shortage of trained orientation and mobility specialists is a provincial concern. And so we have definitely had a shortage in the GTA, but that is something that is experienced across the province. And then our next steps after completing this jurisdictional scan, continuing to provide training for our itinerants on how to use service leveling tools. And that training is often done in conjunction with the provincial demonstration school. So they have come out to work with our team to further their knowledge of how to use these tools effectively and how to interpret the information in those. Updating to include a monitoring level of service for students with degenerative eye conditions. So that would be working where a visual itinerant would be working to monitor their eye conditions, and as soon as things potentially change, to up the level of service, but also to provide support to the school team so that they can program and accommodate as needed for that student. And then we have clarified communication processes so that when we're sharing information about the service tools we use and how they're interpreted, that is done in a more clear and transparent way with families around what tools we're using and how we're interpreting that information. And that's my report. Thank you.
And of course, we have questions from Chad.
Yeah. Particularly interested with this. Okay, just out of curiosity, why didn't you include the scan from the other provinces if you did that?
Because they don't operate under the same Ministry of Education. And so in Ontario, orientation and mobility service, there's no provider for training, but there is in BC. And so we looked at some of the supports they provide specifically around that, because that's where the certification program is. But because they operate under different ministries of education, they may have completely different special education plans. So it informs, but we wanted for our comparison to be able to speak to things that operate within the same framework and funding guidelines.
So when you say that we often exceed service compared to other boards, that wasn't clear to me in the chart. Like I was expecting this is what we lack, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we're exceeding in, this is the delta, this is how we can get better. I think the chart is hard to follow and understand. I think to be honest, I had been hearing about this jurisdictional scan for almost 6 months. I was expecting a more comprehensive report on what we can do to help our students, especially with degenerative conditions or other conditions that are not included, because typically before, I don't think that the guidelines were clear on who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. And so, I asked the question again, how does it exceed? Because I think in your one slide, you said that we also exceeded service compared to other boards.
So through you, Chair, one of the ways is in the number of itinerants that we have in our board. The service levels that we're able to provide in terms of direct working with students because of those staffing levels is something that may not be able to be provided in other boards. So while other boards may have similar criteria for service, they may not be able to provide the same level of direct support to students.
And so how do you ensure then that training is done? Because you mentioned, so we have staffing levels, we have more direct service. Then how do you ensure that training is done in a manner that all of the service that is provided? I guess what I'm trying to say is how do you ensure that all of the TDIs have consistent training and frequent training, and the understanding is relevant, and that the understanding is I don't know, that it's not misinterpreted, because I think that I found that the scales or the guidelines were left for misinterpretation, and I think one of the biggest concerns that I had was the misunderstanding around the guidelines and who qualifies and who doesn't. And year over year, that understanding changed. So how do we ensure that the training is consistent and that the understanding is consistent?
So through you, Chair, the training and qualifications to be an itinerant are set by OCT. So that is standard across the province, and we would have to hire people that meet those qualifications. In terms of keeping current, the training and collaboration with the provincial demonstration schools is our best way to do that. And our itinerants actively reach out to them all the time. In terms of misinterpretation, are you referring to the scales the itinerants use or the O&M?
Yeah, well, the scales on who qualifies for service.
Yeah, and so that's been part of our review, is to clarify what we used to have in terms of criteria and what we're moving towards, so that it is clearer and more transparent as to students who would qualify for direct service with a vision itinerant.
And so for those students that don't qualify for direct service, but they're on monitoring, what does monitoring mean?
So it could mean consulting with the team and reviewing documents. It could mean planning with the school team to ensure there are supports in place for the student that are currently needed. And it could be coming back to review any new documents that are provided to ensure that the level of support is commensurate with the needs of the student.
So can we include that in the plan? Like, is all of this going to be included in the special education plan for 24-25?
I don't think it's quite as detailed as I just said it, but yes, we can certainly look to put that in there, a very detailed description of what monitoring would include.
Yeah, because I think when I was referencing left for interpretation, misinterpretation, monitoring could mean the teacher's going to let us know that there's a need, but the teacher is not trained to understand that the child has a need and needs a TBI.
Yeah, through you, Chair, the monitoring would be done by a visual itinerant, but yes, we can certainly look to make it more detailed in the plan so that there's not as much interpretation about what that level of service includes.
And I would support more detail, because the more detail, you're going to have other boards looking in on what you're providing, and perhaps this will nudge some more boards to, or nudge people to be providing clearer and more consistent service across the province.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, I just do want to acknowledge the commitment of this team to doing a pretty comprehensive scan and providing clarity of service and expectation. I think this is, one of the ways that we have been responsive to the requests of SEAC and making sure that we are accountable for the service that lands on student desks for students. So I just want to acknowledge the commitment of the team, and we have developed pretty strong partnerships and relationships with other boards through this, and sharing of best practice that we plan to continue and have continued to have meetings with them in the ministry.
Yeah. Kevin?
I just had a quick question on the staffing levels and exceeding. Is that linked to the pure numbers of the teachers? Is it linked to the number of students they serve? Is it relative to the size of the different boards? It doesn't really tell me much.
Yes, through you, Chair. So it's linked to enrollment, the size of the boards, but also the availability of teachers who meet the qualifications for teaching students who are blind, low vision. So because there is a limited amount of providers for that additional qualification, some boards are not as easily able to hire staff to fill positions, whereas we draw upon a greater population within our region. Also, some boards are very vast geographically, and therefore if they have limited staff, the amount of time they're able to spend in one geographic area providing service to students is greatly reduced.
Jessie?
So did the criteria for service change at all?
We've added the monitor level for students who may not have met all of the criteria before, but have a degenerative eye condition.
Okay. And sorry, I wasn't clear. Is this included in the plan for F24-25?
Yes.
And so then the plan for F25, the TVI numbers would then include also that we need those resources to then monitor these children. Because it didn't show a change. It just said 9 and 9, like last year was 9, this year is 9. And I'm assuming now you're adding more children in the pool to monitor because we are including degenerative condition children in the monitor.
Yes, we would be adding more students potentially to the monitor list. Our staffing numbers remain the same for next year.
So I'm confused if there's more students in the pool, but the staffing stays the same, how does that happen? How would they be able to fulfill the obligations?
Yeah, through you, Chair, all staff didn't have the same amount of caseloads, student caseloads. So we're just would maximize caseloads, student caseloads for the students for that. So it is working out. There won't be a reduction of service for students. And for all students, we have income, and we also have students who, of course, leave and go to other they're like graduate out or go to the provincial administration school. So there hasn't been a change in service. We're just maximizing caseloads.
And then, sorry, I just keep talking, I'm sorry. Would there be, so if a student is on a monitor, if they're to be monitored, but there deems to be a need for a TVI, what would the timing look like then to get service from a TVI? Like, is there a level of commitment to say, you know, we're going to send out a TVI to then observe the child's need, and then yes, that child has a need, so now we're going to commit to putting it on the IEP and delivering and attending to that need in 2 months or 3 months, or do they have to wait till the next fiscal year then to get sources?
Through you, Chair, I don't know that I can answer that fully because it would depend on the student and their needs, but it would also depend on the number of students that we have on our caseloads for next year. So I don't envision it waiting to another fiscal year. I would envision that the monitor service would be provided upon identification of a need. But I can't commit to, you know, it'll happen in this many weeks but I don't see why it would not occur as soon as possible.
I guess I'm asking all of these questions because it's so easy to have time escape us, and TVIs are a critical part in children who are blind, low vision, they're learning, and, you know, finding strategies that work for them, and teaching them strategies and teaching the teachers these strategies. And so 1 or 2 months is a long time for a child then to wait for a service. And so, you know, having some sort of level of commitment and not just leaving it at monitoring and identifying. And I guess what I'm asking for, Principal Bertrand, is more detailed in this monitor and act recommendation. And that's like the when, how, you know, I guess more next steps on what this monitor means.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, we also have in our department flexibility and responsiveness. So if the requested need outweighs the staff that we've had, we've seen that again through the support of the director's office, that we'll go and we'll show demonstrated needed data and say we need additional EA staff to support students. So, you know, to say that, you know, we have to wait 3 months, that's a hard thing to say, but please know that when we need to advocate for additional supports, we do. And we're very well supported by our director's office.
I was just going to ask one last question around orientation and mobility. I don't think that we did it justice addressing that we still don't have an orientation and mobility specialist in Peel Board. I found myself personally in this situation with my son 3 years ago when our O&M left for family leave, and I find myself again in this situation, and many other parents and children. And family life happens, but I think that not enough was done to plan for someone can leave. And so how do we plan to have a replacement? And I can appreciate that there's a lack of orientation and mobility specialists. I just don't think that any of that was represented in your report, or the next steps or actions were outlined in the report.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, respectfully, we only can post for vacancies according to HR timelines. So we can only post for a vacancy after we understand what the leave date is prior to the leave date. We have posted for that position repeatedly and have never taken down the leave posting. And then when we were having success, we reached out to Provincial Demonstration School, asked for any leads, guidelines, can you post for us? Also unsuccessful in that regard. We then went and brought the concern to the ministry, and Principal Bertrand had a meeting with 5 other boards who are in similar situations to us. And the only qualification services provided for orientation mobility specialists are done in BC. And we raised that to the ministry and highlighted that for them. So there has been extensive amount of effort, research and posting done. We cannot produce, and it's a very nuanced and specific skill. So we have not produced any applicants, and many boards are in that same situation. So we've done all that we can do in advocacy and search and outlook and connections to really acknowledge that. And we understand that that does bring about challenges, but it's not because we haven't made an effort to fill the position.
I really appreciate the fact that you're asking these questions, because I have to admit that this particular exceptionality is one that we haven't heard much about. Maybe it's due to numbers, or maybe it's just due to, we've never had a presentation about blind and low vision. So it's been very enlightening to hear some of the challenges that you're facing. And I maybe would help if the SEAC could also, if it was noted in the minutes that the SEAC has a concern and about the lack of orientation and mobility specialists, and the fact that we don't have training in Ontario. I don't know if the ministry looks at our minutes, or if they ever read them, or if anything ever gets to them. But we certainly, I'd certainly be willing to write some sort of opinion, I guess, of the lack of that particular specialty being available in Ontario.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if there's more that we can do other than just accept that there's a lack of. And I'm thinking about the IEPs and the legal obligation, and those children that have orientation mobility on their IEP, and we can't actually fulfill the IEP because there is no orientation mobility. And if the other district school boards are not fulfilling it, then what is the provincial education system doing? Because we're not helping these students. And yeah, okay, there's a lack, but then what happens? Like, so what's next?
And I really think this goes across exceptionality, especially what we see the funding challenges across the province for all exceptionalities. Their boards are being asked to do incredible things with less and less money, and I don't know if the new funding model is gonna help, or is it gonna improve things? Probably not. My first guess is that it's not gonna improve things, that we're gonna continue to have to struggle and continue to have to try and make interesting questions. Sorry. Trustee Clark, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, through you, Chair. Could we create a motion to ask for a plan on this exceptionality? If that's the question that you were asking or wondering?
I don't know if it's a motion, or I think it's more of a way we can make the province aware that the SEAC is aware of the challenges that this board faces with regards to hiring this particular exceptionality, and that we are aware of the challenges that this board faces with generally hiring staff to support all exceptionalities, and that are, all children with exceptionalities, with any kind of exceptionality, deserve a right to learn and to be supported in their learning, and to be supported properly in their learning.
And through you, Chair, we fully agree, and we have raised and made some suggestions to the ministry, like getting an accreditation here in Ontario, or opportunities for accreditation here in Ontario. We've made recommendations such as that. So they have committed to taking that back, and we can reach out back to them, but the meeting just happened last month, I believe.
Can I ask if you think the minister actually listens? Or is that politically?
Well, through you, Chair, the person I met with from the ministry is our education officer. So they would simply take the concerns from the 5 boards that were in that particular meeting back to their team at the ministry. And then they would have to run it sort of up and see what, if any, change is going to make. But the person, our education officer, is very responsive to our questions and concerns, but isn't necessarily in a position to make decisions.
Superintendent Sakata, you know, you and I have been going offline about this for 8 months, like since September, October started. And so it pains me to get the same response, which is there's a shortage. We know there's a shortage and we can't do anything. And there are students who are not being served and not being assisted. And the guidelines, or even just that, I know a lot of work went into this jurisdictional scan, but it is not comprehensive to me. I think that we're not supporting the students like we should, and I think there needs to be a level of accountability back to the government. Like, not like I know I'm sitting here holding you guys accountable, but I'm also saying, how do we hold then that government accountable to say we have had countless number of meetings and Principal Bertrand has met with you and documented this concern, and we have children and IEPs and children's needs that we have not delivered. And so therefore, SEAC and OPVIC and these parents are holding us accountable, and now we're holding you accountable. Like, what happens when nothing is really moving and it's a whole year later? Like, I guess is my question. Like, how do we escalate, or what do we do next?
Through you, Chair, the age-old question. I think I was here not long ago, and there's a letter was crafted and on its way through the chair and the director of education here around mental health supports and how we're underfunded. And really, through you, Chair, respectfully, that is everyone here's responsibility. You need to take that back and advocate through your MPP, through the government, to make changes to the funding formula around education in general, but more specifically to special education. And so, I mean, we're doing our part. We're advocating and pushing, but I think it's incumbent upon you to do the same through your channels and through your advocacy. You actually hold a lot of power. And so, I mean, we can do it. Coordinating Principal Bertrand is pushing on our side of things, but money talks. And right now we are significantly underfunded, particularly Peel. Maybe that's out of line, but
It's not
I'm speaking true.
We are underfunded, terribly underfunded.
So, and I think, we can all say, you do it, you do it, you do it. We collectively have to do it in order to make change. And the families such as yours with the greatest amount of risk, I think we need to do that. We need to support you in doing that. But it's a challenge for sure.
So could I ask that the responses with the ministry, like, is it offsite to have them included in the agenda? Because I mean, the background, like, all I have is this chart and this 1-page kind of synopsis, but nothing, like with what the ministry guidelines are. I think I've been searching for the ministry guidelines for months. Could I get the ministry guidelines? Could I get the responses? And can I get more so that I can take it back to the MVP and continue advocating it off of like this channel as well?
And through you, Chair, we did share ministry responses to your specific questions in our meeting, and can certainly provide them to you.
A copy.
Yeah, a copy, because we did provide them to you already in our meeting and had that meeting where we did share their response and our practice.
Yeah.
But certainly happy to share that with you.
Yeah, I'm asking for a copy because I didn't get a copy.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely.
And I would encourage all the SEAC reps, when you're out and you're talking with anybody, just if you hear of somebody complaining about school system, take the opportunity to educate them about how the money is spent and the fact that we don't have a lot. We may be hearing from other sources that we have a whole bunch of money, but the way the money is allocated and how the money is allocated means there's not a lot of wiggle room to provide specific services here and specific services here. And explain to them how the envelopes move, how the money moves, because I think a lot of people think the money moves in a certain direction. It is spent in a certain spot, and that's administration. And actually, the money moves towards the students, and it's always moving towards the students and towards the education of the students. And that the budget, the envelopes are pretty. They're controlled, and money can't flow into administration, which so yeah. I think I've had my seat. Anyway, okay. Would you like to proceed as a report, Jess? Sure. Okay, do we have a secretary? Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Clark.
Nicole. Thank you. Or just Trustee Clark? Okay, Trustee Clark. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for that report. Okay, we have communication for action or receipt. It's the process communication for parents with children with ADHD to request a student review meeting response to parent question. And this is an oral response.
Yes, and through you, Chair, thank you. We do have a guiding document operational procedure outlining this student review meetings that has was updated last year and sent out to teams. But after our delegation, we realized that there's a needed for continued learning and communication. So we are establishing a writing team over the summer. That's going to create a course for educator that details the theoretical and practical understanding of ADHD. And we're also going to provide a pathways for support document for students who have ADHD, and that will have a mirroring parent document that includes how you seek pathways to support for your child who has ADHD, which includes access to student review meetings 1 and 2 at the school level. So we are committing to a writing team to establish that. And look forward to any feedback from SEAC around that or any questions that you might have that would help us to develop a pathway of accessibility for families with ADHD that is meaningful to them and really does acknowledge the many kind of neurobiology of it, the symptoms, how they are impacted, and the practical strategies for educators.
Do we have any questions or comments with regards to that? Yes, Kevin?
I'd like to offer my help.
Yes, yeah. That's great. Through you, Chair, yes, we love that help. We are doing writing teams in the summer, but I think consultation with you throughout the summer, if you're available, would be excellent. So thank you.
Anybody else want to offer? I think it's fabulous, and you to get back to the presenters that you were going to do this.
So through you, Chair, we did share a response to the delegation last time. There were some follow-up questions from Trustee Elves around ministry deeming students with ADHD exceptional. We're bringing that back to SEAC in June.
And Trustee Elves, is this something you would be interested in helping with?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. I know that I have some additional work to be done once we have the response from the ministry. I connected with a constituent of mine that provided the delegation actually just earlier this week. So absolutely.
Great. Kevin, you have something else?
It was just a couple of things. So there are two documents, if you don't already have them. One is the accessibility education document from the Human Rights Commission from 2016. And the other is a policy memo from the Ministry of Education, I think it's 2011 or 2012, on ADHD, recognizing ADHD as part of the exceptional.
All right. So would you like to move for receipt of that communication, Kevin?
Sure.
And Trustee Ellis, would you like to second it?
Happy to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, 9, which is Chair's request for written questions from committee members. I'm seeing any. You do have? Okay, you have a written question?
I had forwarded today to you, but it might have been too late.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay, because it might, I don't know what the cutoff time is, and then I can read it out loud.
I have to admit my scanning of my email tends to be a little sometimes I see things and sometimes I don't, but you have a written question?
Yeah, okay. Like, do we still have time, or can I go ahead and read it?
Yes, read your written question then.
So in December, TVIs received a letter indicating their term of employment was coming to an end for this August, and that they were to return to schools. In February, those positions were recalled, citing as a result of change to the organization structure of departments within PDSB, you are being recalled. So my questions are around those letters. So what was the organizational structural change that resulted in them being recalled in February?
So through you, Chair, as we've discussed prior, and I think that Jennifer brought up questions around the restructuring of our department. All central departments went through a significant restructure. We recalled both blind, low vision, and hard of hearing itinerants almost immediately, because we understand, as Principal Bertrand shared earlier, the very specific accreditation that they have, and the importance of having a continued itinerant service for students who BLB and HOH students. So they were immediately recalled back. And then they also received a term end date, but we have worked with HR partners in the director's office to communicate to blind, low vision, and HOH itinerants that the term end date of 2 consecutive 3-year terms does not apply to them, because of the specialty specialty accreditation that they must have in order to support our students.
If you have an additional question?
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing, Superintendent Zapata, is that they are highly specialized, and their term does not come to an end. So they don't have to their contracts are not renegotiated after a 3-year term, is what I'm hearing, right? Is
So
that the right understanding?
Jeff will put as superintendent. I just promoted you. Yeah. All that will answer.
Thank you, and through your chair. So being completely honest, I have yet to see the updated term policy, and it's completed. But my understanding is they are exempt from the 2 terms and then having to return for 2 years
to a school
before they can reapply. So it's not the way it was previously, where once you were an itinerant, you were an itinerant as long as you wanted to be. They would still have terms, but they would be able to reapply continuously, is my understanding.
So is that something that changed this year, or so that did change this year? So when that change happened, I don't recall in any of the SEAC meetings that was brought, that change was brought up. Like, isn't changes like that, shouldn't they be communicated in forms like this?
So that was an HR process, not a special education process.
So when those letters went out, we did not consult the HR process, and we sent out those letters and immediately retracted them when we did consult the HR process. I'm just sorry, I'm just trying to follow along why the letters were sent out to these TVIs, because it created so much turn in the blind low vision community and media and parents and children and family and stress levels. So I'm trying to understand where the miss happened. So there was a change in the HR policy, and then we had sent out the letters prior to the change. Like, what was the miss, or how do we avoid this from happening again next year, the year after?
No question, thanks. Yeah, through you, Chair. I think as Superintendent Scott shared, there was a decision around itinerants in general, then a recognition around the specific qualifications that are required, and the potential risk to losing staff that we wouldn't be able to get them back because of that specific qualification, and they could move on. So there was an exception to their terms, so that we wouldn't have to go through that. So I would, right now, as long as I'm here, I can share with you that the likelihood of that happening to them again is probably not going to happen, because we've kind of gone through this process this year, recognizing that the likelihood of retracting and retaining those folks with specialized qualifications, it would harm the system than anything else. So. And that was a managerial decision, so that's not a SEAC decision. That was, the managerial decisions based from HR and through the executive.
So could we, and thank you, AD Dissel, I appreciate that. So could we have that documented in the plan somewhere and it's not left for interpretation? I appreciate that you're hoping that you're still here next year, but people move on, and then interpretation is different, and then we're fighting the same fight again.
So I think you're asking for something in the SEAC plan that doesn't belong in the SEAC plan. That is a personnel piece that belongs with the personnel matters and human resources and hiring and staffing and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure that we can connect those two.
Okay.
But we'll take that back, and maybe I can bring something back just around confirmation around that staff for next year, but certainly wouldn't be part of the special education plan.
Okay. So that this is going to be communicated with the TDIs and the schools?
Through you, Chair, they've already been informed.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it's written down in some HR policy.
So I'm not sure it's a policy.
Or it's written down something.
So in their contract, within their contract, there would be some language crafted around those pieces. So I'd have to.
So that there's no.
You had the director here a few minutes ago. We could have asked Masima Kangura, but certainly she is not with us right now. So I haven't seen the language, but certainly know that they are exempt from the term contract.
If not in the plan, could you include it in the meeting notes here so that my colleagues and peers, and if somebody had to reference or understand it a little bit more, that they could?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think I did share that in writing to both you and Wes, but certainly happy to share that language we received from HR. Thank you.
Okay. So Shelley, can I just ask one thing?
Yes.
Or say one thing. We have to be mindful of the fact that while HR is a separate issue, when it impacts our children, that is our issue. So we can still note it and we can still discuss it, even though we don't make the decision. They're not totally separate, really, when it comes down to them.
And reports from representatives on council. Sorry, do you have something else?
Yeah,
you have
questions.
You have a written question? Oh, written questions? Okay, yes. Written questions, more written questions. And
it's around the ATRT rule.
okay.
Concerned that changes being made to that rule are going to impact your students.
Can you turn your mic on?
I'll make sure. The ATRT role appears to have changed significantly. They've, in addition to being moved to research and innovation, the amount of time that looks like that is going to be spent on assistive technology has decreased based on the other things that they're supposed to be doing. So my questions are, how is the new ATRT role being funded next year? Should I just go through them, or has anyone got the ability to answer them tonight?
Through you, Chair, we're happy to document them, Jennifer, and take them down for motion action log, but as shared, this is an ongoing conversation that we're having, and so would want to provide you the most updated and fulsome response, but happy for your feedback.
So we don't know who's paying for the ATRT role this year?
So again, we're going to take that back because the ministry just outlined very significant changes to the special education funding pockets. According to Principal Bertrand and I were just at a meeting last week with the ministry around the funding changes. Of course, the technical papers have been received by our finance department, and we are meeting with them next week.
Do you have an idea how that's going to impact this program?
I will let you know.
When?
We'll document your questions.
Okay, so the other question is, who's going to be managing the SEAC claims for next year? If they're paid through SEA, managed SEA fund equipments, why are they not in the spec-ed plan? Who will be providing the direct instructions to the students and the teachers that have SEA equipment and programs? Who from the special education department is going to fill the gap now the ATRT role has changed? What percentage of the ATRT time will be spent directly in tasks for students with special needs versus regular class? And I'd like, if possible, since research and innovation now houses ATRT, we could hear from them on what the plans are for that group and have follow-ups with them throughout the year. They're going to be continuing to provide services for our kids.
Proceed, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I now remember what you just said. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay. Ken, do we have any reports? Any additional questions? 11? We don't have 12 or 13. We have the motion action log.
Oh, okay. I was looking for the email. I'll send it to you.
Sorry if I put this through. We are at 10 o'clock.
That's okay. Through you, Chair. The one ongoing question was addressed by Executive Officer of HR and Partnership and Equity, with a recommendation from Jennifer Knight to find us a way to track that, so we can answer part of this question and then put the question back on. I think the other part of it, if that's okay with you, Jennifer.
Yeah, we can.
And there were no further questions outside of the response to the delegation. Oh, except for these structural changes, which was also from Jennifer, which are being presented in June.
So we're good with the action motion log and the response. Would you like to move for receipt of that, Jennifer?
Sure.
Thank you. And do we have seconder? Oh, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, would you like to move for 15 adjournment?
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question?
Regarding the action motion log. The request for information from the ONSIS report is no longer on the action motion log.
Yes, I believe we provided a response to that, and
No, you never
asked
did.
for.
We never got the data.
There was a response provided. You asked for additional data that Principal Bertrand shared, that we did have the nuanced data that you were asking for. I can look back on the minutes, but I can verify that, but we can add it back.
Or so you don't have the data on the breakdown of special education students by exceptionality, by their placement, by their gender. You don't have any of that information. We've gotten it in the past. I actually brought it with me tonight.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, Principal Bertrand, we did respond to that motion action log, I believe, but I think you asked for a clarification.
So through you, Chair, if I remember correctly, the one that was in the motion action log was referencing by panel. And so we had some difficulty pulling by exceptionality by panel, but we could add back on the one for gender and what was the other one you said, sorry?
By exceptionality, by placement, and by gender, yeah.
By placement and by gender. we
I
should
have
get-
one here that you
Yeah.
can look at.
I think we can do that. It was the panel issue that LTSS was having a hard time pulling that data.
It's
So
still
you'll-
missing
you'll-
off the action motion law.
So you'll give,
We'll add that.
Principal Bertrand,
I can show it to him. I'm not gonna give it to him.
okay. Or maybe you could make a PDF and send him a copy, so you can see.
Yeah, I could do that.
Or we can take a picture. All right. Okay, so, oh, my trustee disappeared.
Thank you,
Trustee Clark? Okay.
Sorry about that. I've been sitting so long, my leg cramped up. It happened once during a board meeting. So, ouch. Okay, it's comes from working in groceries for like 23 years. Okay, yeah, I'll move for adjournment if there are no further questions.
And Nicole, you want a second adjournment? All in favor? Thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.